Hi Benchmates! Today's show features new kits, listener mail and boulders attempting to pronounce Mitsubishi without summoning a small weather system. This is Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of the International Plastic Modelers Society UK. Please welcome your hosts, Paul Pendleton-Brown, Mike Baldwin, James Nevitt, Mark Housley, and Paul Wong. And we're joined this episode by Jon Tabinor, freelance magazine editor, content creator, and occasional scale modeler.
Hello Benchmates and welcome to episode 7 of Beyond the Box Art, the official podcast of IPMS UK. We hope you appreciate why we took a short break from our normal format to concentrate on the mental health issues covered in episode 6, and understand why we skipped our normal light-hearted approach. Normal service has been resumed, so brace yourselves. At the helm is myself, Brownie, the host who knows more about aircraft and obscure reference material than is probably healthy. Joining me on this episode are Wongy, our resident tipmaster.
Hello!
Boulders, the Titanic modeller who was sunk before he even got started on the project and got a nose boop for his troubles.
Hello all.
Nevs, our ship guru who knows his funnels from his foxhole.
Hi everyone.
And Mark, the person who has more plastic in his stash than an ExxonMobil factory.
Hello.
Also in this episode, we'll be joined by Guideline Publishing's Jon Tabinor, talking about writing for various scale modelling magazines and the challenges associated with writing to a deadline. We also have another Precision by Passion deep dive, this time with Mike Reeves from Phase Hanger Resin Accessories, and his 12 years of producing essential add-ons to kits, and his transition from cast resin to 3D printing. So grab a cuppa, clear a bit of space on the bench, and get ready. Episode 7 starts now. Right, Wongy, it's been a whole month since our last catch-up for this feature, so is the Harrier T4 still hovering on your bench? Or has it been unceremoniously parked OTSOD?
All I can say is, it's in the paint shop at the minute. I'm just waiting on some decals for it, because it didn't come with any decals. Then again, it never came with any instructions, but having only 15 parts, it was easy enough. But in the meantime, it's in the paint shop. I'm going to park it up after paint, but I have been back on the catamaran.
Oh, good grief.
So I've taken Mark's advice, which was, can I not have a quick delve into eBay and see if there are any other figures around? And I found this manufacturer in China, and he does these 1/20th scale, which I think is TT scale in model railways, something like that. And did 100 figures for about, I think it was like less than 10 quid. So that's pretty good. Yeah.
Very cheap.
So I'm going to try and convert some of those and just whack on a little bit of milliput and shape it to make them look like yacht people.
And there's enough there to play with it.
I only need something like 10. So the other 90 can be cast aside. So I've used them for some other project. So there's that one. And I'm racking my brains now.
I wonder what that noise was. I thought it was interference on the mic.
Do you know how I said that I was working on this really quick, easy build Revell snow speeder?
Yes.
I took it all apart and was just about to prime it and repaint it. And I've started messing with it. So I've
Advanced modelling syndrome's taken over, has it?
Yeah, and when you start looking at something and you go, let me check the references. Well, that's wrong, I'll have to fix that. I've been messing about with that. I've even chopped the canopy in half and improved it. And now that I've done that one, I've actually taken another one out of the cupboard. So I'm going to build two at the same time and then put it into a diorama. So it's starting to grow arms and legs, this. As a kit which was supposed to rejuvenate the old mojo, it's just grown
Overdone
arms
it.
and legs. I have completely.
Yeah.
But it'll look good.
Can you put a Kanban in the diorama as well?
Funny enough, no. What I will do is utilise my own tips on the previous pod with regards to snow. So I'm going to give that another go.
For episode 5, if anyone's wondering.
When you do the catamaran, is that going to be a seascape, by the way?
Oh, God.
Yeah. Why don't you do an upside-down hull and use your spare figures as little bodies?
Sat on top of it, waiting for a rescue helicopter.
Yeah.
Is it the same scale as the lifeboats?
With some sharks swimming around and...
That could be arranged. That could be arranged. I do have figures like that. Am I motoring fast? The answer is no.
What have you spent your cash on since the last time?
Right, because I've been playing with these snow speeders. I think I might have mentioned it before, but I did buy a Bandai snow speeder, which, again, from Evil Bay. And that came in quite handy to super detail the Revell kits.
Is it the same scale?
No, they pulls apart.
Really?
You look at one, and the other one's a shrunken version of it. Probably by a foot. Yeah, but the other one's better by a long shot. But yeah, so I've used that as if you like, as a template for modifying bits on the other one. But I've not gone to town on it yet, he says. And in terms of other purchases, I did look at this Airfix Hawk, which I've got in the cupboard. And again, that's not got any decals with it. So I went on Evil Bay again. And I spied a decal set, which is in the Airfix Hawk T1 club kit. And you get 2 sets in there, but you only get 1 aircraft. And I thought, I may as well get that and do two Hawks. So
48 or 72?
The true scale, Nevs, it's 72 only. 48 takes way too much shirt space, and I've only got a tiny house. Larry does one. Jimmy does one. I think that's an older design. Moulding, sorry. Yeah, I think they're the only Revell.
So is the Airfix one, is it like a Red Arrows one?
In the box, it was the, oh God, what do you call it? You know, the black one with the wacky, the one where they had like the big roundel with the heart on the underside of it. You know, which one?
It's the RAF Benevolent Fund Scheme for the team.
Okay, it didn't come with those decals, but otherwise the kit is the same as the Red Arrows version. Now, I've got quite literally loads of those in Red Arrow schemes.
All in lovely red plastic.
All in red plastic, all the Generation 1 versions of it, and I've got the newer moulding of the Red Arrows one in Airfix. But for my sins, many moons ago, I did actually buy, I think it was a guy on eBay who was selling off his Red Arrows kits, 1/48. I actually bought 5 of them off him. He must have been going for the Diamond 9, but I bought 5 off him. They're all in the loft, probably doing aerobatics in bits. So yes, so that's my purchases for this period.
What have you had on your bench then, James?
Still cracking away at the Kinugasa, the Japanese cruiser. It's very nearly finished now. If it's not there for Bolton August show, it'll definitely be done very soon after. Just needs a couple of bits going down, then the rigging and the propellers. Like I said in the last one, I was just starting a 72nd scale Spitfire as well. I'm just waiting for the mask to dry and then it's ready for priming. So that's that there. So yeah, that's come along really well as well. I put a magnet in the underside. I don't know if you can see it, so that I don't have to... Yes, I've damaged it with the magnet, but it's plugged the hole, so that when I put it on a stand, I can essentially just take it off the stand, put on any other stand whenever I like, and the magnet seems to hold it stronger than a rigid stand does.
Have you profiled the magnet for the fuselage contour, or are you just going to submerge it slightly with some filler?
Drilled quite a nasty hole in the underside. It's just, the idea was it would be behind the landing light, but unfortunately it's ended up covering part of the landing light area. Now, on this particular kit, it's one of the KP ones, it doesn't provide any kind of glass landing light anyway. So it is flush with the fuselage. So the least amount of disruption possible. When it gets mounted, it's going in this Perspex rod, and I've managed to drill the other magnet into the top of it, so it's very nearly flush there. It is at a slight angle, which is good that when it is on the base, it's not just going to be completely flat. It is actually going to be at more of a flying angle, so that's turned out really well as well.
Obviously, those that are actually listening to the pod, as we're audio only, can't see what you're holding up. If you can take some pictures in the state that it is at the moment and upload it when the episode drops, it'll be useful.
Yeah, it's going to look a bit less ugly once it's had its primer on. So I'll probably do the primer, put it on its little stalk like that, and then show it off.
Okay. And what have you been spending your money on?
I've been quite good these last 2 weeks. I haven't spent any money on any models.
Good grief. Moving on then.
Not much.
How long have you got?
Starting the list.
I've never known
now.
anybody start so many models and then go on to something else.
I haven't gone on to anything else. I've not had chance.
What have you got?
Hurricane. Still decaling. Obviously, there's a load of decals. That got about 5 or 6 hours left in it. That's the only thing I'm creating at the minute. Anything else? Nope, just the Hurricane. I have bought stuff. So, yeah. I went to Riyadh. For those that don't know, it's the Royal International Air 2. And I bought the Revell 144th scale Airbus A400 with a 144th scale Tonka.
And for our listeners overseas wondering why on earth Borders has bought a A400 and a metal diecast toy, Tonka is the nickname for a tornado over in the UK.
I should have said tornadoes in a Tonka. It's what they refer to over here.
Ooh, very nice.
It's a lovely little kit. Absolutely. Looks like it's going to go together rather well from what I've looked at. And the second purchase was another Hurricane.
Because they always come in pairs, don't they?
And this is in the new boxing.
Oh, okay.
Just open that up then, man. Let's see.
So rather than being an end flap boxing, it's a
Very much like the Hella.
Only one problem I found.
The back.
One side is the back is very flimsy. The 3 sides are really strong. So that side should have a reinforcement strip.
Yeah.
I wish they'd all take a leaf out of ICM's book and Zvezda. Their boxes are brilliant, aren't they?
Oh, you could kick them
Bulletproof.
like a football.
Bulletproof,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The Postman just cannot. You defeat them guys every time.
It's been built for delivery companies. I didn't like to mention one, but they're very good.
Haven't they just changed the name? Do you mean that one?
Yeah, the one that's in every town and city. They're quite good.
The Hurricane, the new wings, 2 new sprues. Everything else is exactly the same. There's only one slight problem with the kit. And obviously, Brownie, you're aware. Obviously, I've emailed Revell. I'm just waiting for a response. There's huge sinkholes on the blisters of the cannons. But that might just be a one-off. I'm just waiting to hear back off Revell on that and see if they can give me some new top wing halves.
I don't think it is a one-off, Mike. I think I've seen a few people complain on that one.
Manufacturing fault.
Oh.
So you said the inside of the wings had a date stamp of 2022, so this is pre-Luke's time with Revell.
I just think they've been took out too quickly out of the mould process. Because it's quite a bit of thick plastic, I think the plastic's been too soft and it's dropped. So I don't think they've been cured enough
In the
through the
mould.
process
Yeah.
in the mould. So I think they've been took out a little bit too quick. 2022, so that was the same time that Mark 2B was released. Was that 23? I think it was 23. Everything's obviously been tooled and they're just spacing them out. Schemes are lovely. 1 civilian and 3 fleet air arm, and I'm not doing one out the box. I'm going to do an RAF-2C because all the parts are in the kit. It'll be either based in Libya or Egypt, or I'm going to do a Southeast Asian based in Burma.
Is the Volks filter in the kit?
Yes, everything's there. The only thing they've changed is the wings.
Gotcha.
So you get the bottom part of the fuselage so that you can have a flat instead of the one that's been adapted for the arrestor hook. But everything else is in there. So yeah, you can do a 2C with the Volks filter on for a Burma or a Tropic.
So for the King's Cup colour scheme, have you got to the cannon ports a separate piece, or have you got to do some
Surgery, so you've got to cut the cannons off and then fill it and sand it to give the wings a nice bit of roundedness, which is a bit odd because the 2B, there was an insert to fit in the Browning 303s, which was obviously in all 4 Brownings together, which I thought they would have just done the same so that you could put each cannon in, because if they're doing a 2D, they're going to have to do another wing because there's no guns on the leading edge of the wing because they had the tank busters underneath.
Interesting.
Which was the Spano 40 mils. So again, it's going to be a third wing for them to do.
Expensive.
It probably won't be for us, but obviously for the tool, for Revell for tooling, I bought a book on the Voiter 7 Corsair. Basically, it's Greek Corsairs, so that's a really good reference. And I got some patches. That was about it. That's all I spent money on.
Okay. Moving on then. Mark.
Nothing really. I had a little operation on my hand a fortnight ago, so that's stopped me doing much of anything. And the thing that I was doing, the little Hella Carras, the PZL P23, I've just boxed it up at the minute. So at the moment, I have absolutely nothing on the bench. I'm not doing anything. As usual with work, because it's month end, it's got a bit crazy. I'm concentrating on that at the minute. Purchases. I've got the new Airfix Liberator D, the one that people are complaining about that it's got the wrong canopy in it. Yeah, the original kit came with 2 canopies in the clear parts, and one of them would have been correct, yet for some reason Airfix have put the wrong one in this kit. I do have the other version, so I'm probably all right. I can swap. If I ever get round to building it, everybody says to me, you'll never build it. But I might do, eventually.
I wonder why Fix didn't just put them clear parts.
I don't know. It would have been more effort to cut that canopy off than just leave it.
Yeah. There were 2 separate sprues in the H kit. So the B24H had 2 separate clear sprues. One was armoured, one was bubbled. The D shouldn't have the armoured in it, which is what they've put in it. And I think it might just be a packaging issue because they're all packed in India. So they may have just run the wrong one off and then packed.
Can't have done. Don't think they could have done that.
On the tooling, they will have done. If they put the wrong tooling on, they will have done.
Have you written to Airfix or emailed Airfix?
No, I'll probably just see what the score is. I'll read a few of the blogs and see what people are doing. They've not posted anything yet. It was all over Facebook, quite a few, and Britmodder, obviously. But like I say, I've got the other kit, so I've got a fix, I suppose.
Yeah. Does the canopy parts that you've got, does it match the instructions? Because that might be the answer then. If it does match, then it's Airfix's problem. If it doesn't...
It's Airfix, so...
Is the Liberator the only purchase?
I've purchased, after talking to Luke the other week, the airbrush that he was messing about with, the Pro Convoy PS270, just to have a try and a play with it. Because I was very impressed with his airbrush control. It's very good. It really is a nice airbrush. It cost me 100 quid, to be honest with you. It was a tad, literally a tad. But I couldn't tell what he was, because you know where I got it from, our favourite
local shop.
Hindley based shop. He did me a deal on it. Yeah, it is very good. And I was getting some really nice results with it.
So what does that take?
Because I think over the years, I think I've lost quite a lot of my, because I've not done much really. My skills with the airbrush are pretty crap really.
So how many airbrushes have you got now?
Oh God, 30 maybe.
Right.
Thereabouts. Yeah, I've got a lot. I've got a few. But don't forget, it took me a long time. And there's some really old ones there. I've still got the first one I ever got. The old
Badger kit.
Dilby Sprite Major from the Manchester model shop. That might have been Andy Brown who sold me. I got it with a little DeVilbiss compressor, and it was probably a week's wage then. This was in the early 80s. They were a good set of lads.
They actually told you what you needed and not to waste your money.
And the thing was, they were modelers as well. They weren't just lads serving you and taking your money. I always remember Andy Brown being just as interested in seeing what was in the box as you were. Like most modelers, before you buy the thing, they'll usually have a quick nosy inside, won't they, and see what they're getting, kind of thing. And they were just as keen to do that as you were.
I used to walk past the shop window, and It was incredible because they filled it with all these built kits, didn't they?
Yeah.
And I used to wonder who
yeah.
builds those kits.
I had a few in there over the years. There was a good club in there as well. So they were never short of guys to bring stuff in and put it in the window for a while. And they'd leave it in there for a few weeks and then they'd give it back.
Covered in dust.
I've still got one that I had in the window from 82, 83 in God's Chosen Scale in 72, a little tank diorama thing. And it came back with a lovely little cover over it.
It was good.
A few planes in there. It's very good. And the other thing I remember, depending on who you got, especially if it was Andy Brown, you'd come back to the till to say, I'm going to get off now, Andy, I'm going to settle up. All the paints would be there, just in case you wanted them. Do you remember the Humbrol authentic colour? And there'd be a little row of them there. Absolutely superb.
Hey, service with a smile.
You don't get that. No. And I remember it was Andy that introduced me to the super thin glue, but it wasn't Tamiya. I can't remember the manufacturer of it.
Was it in like a tall medicine type brown bottle or something like that?
No, it was very much the Tamiya super thin glue bottle, but it was a bit smaller. It was a tad smaller.
Oh, okay. Everybody's waving medicine at me now. Don't drink it.
No, I know, I've tried. It's not good for you at all.
Plastic weld, that's the word. Applied
on your lungs.
Yeah.
I managed to get hold of some of that Tamiya airbrush cleaner. It's the same stuff.
Funny you should say that, but Boulders sent me a link for it, and it came all the way from Poland, because you can't get it here.
No.
The last time I was in Hong Kong, in a model shop there, he must have had 20 in the shop. I was going to buy the lot, shove it in the suitcase, and come home. And I've just thought to myself, no, because if that ignites, the whole plane goes down, and I'm on it. So, forget it.
Yeah, you can chance one, can't you? A little fire.
A small fire in the home. No, not when I'm on it anyway.
I bought two. I got one off one guy. It was really cheap. I think it was about 11 quid. Yeah. The first one I bought, it was like premium. I think it was about 18 quid. And it was one of them where I just thought, sod it, I'm going to get one. So I did it. And
I've not tried it. Does it work?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that's pro tip there. If you want to not spend as much on Tamiya thin.
From that point of view of like nearly 18 quid with the post, you're probably going to get quite a few Tamiya thins. What is it retailing at now?
$4.75.
$4.75?
Yeah, about a fiver. Yeah. So 4 bottles.
30 mil.
I don't know what's in it. I don't actually know what's in it. That's what it just looks a bit big.
So that's
250 mils. What's actually in there?
Well, I think it's 40 mil.
40 mil it is. Yeah. Doing a quick bit of maths, that's 6.
80 mils a tenner.
6 bottles it is. 6 bottles.
So £30 near enough.
Yeah.
So it does work out.
Cheaper.
A bit cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's definitely good stuff.
For all you listeners, Mark just sniffed it and his nose welded.
Melted off, yeah.
And we don't recommend you do that at home.
Yeah, don't do that.
Okay, so moving on to our guest for this episode, John. What have you been working on recently?
I am currently just building left models 148 scale Heinkel 112E, which is the Romanian Air Force boxing. The 112 was the sort of unsuccessful competitor to Messerschmitt's 109, which saw not really any service with the Luftwaffe, but did see service with the Hungarian and Romanian Air Forces in the early part.
Is that the one with a slightly elliptical wing?
Yeah, it's a very narrow wingspan and a almost slightly gull wing to it, actually. But it looks like the 111 bomber, but scaled down. It's a very Heinkel look to it.
Didn't Matchbox do one of them?
No, they did the Set 70, the reconnaissance plane. So that's been re-riveted, so the cockpit rebuilt, some new resin exhausts modified. It'll be Romanian because it's one of my interests, although Hungarian would have been good if there's some markings in there. And that's just got assembled today. So hopefully get some paint on it maybe by Friday. That's all good. Very nice. That's actually a rare one I bought and will be a magazine article rather than one that's sent to me to review. So that's quite nice to actually get one of my own ones in.
Obviously, we'll be coming on to the magazine very shortly, but the 112, you say it is a bit of a rare bird. Why on earth did someone tool a 112?
I think it's just one of those models that interests World War II modelers because it's esoteric enough to be interesting. And if you are so inclined, you can build one classic, the red fin with the white disc and the swastika on it. It's a very early Nazi era. It does have that kind of voice. It almost has that Raiders of the Lost Ark feel in many ways, which I think is quite popular sometimes. Plus, if you like Eastern European Air Forces, they look good.
I'm just trying to think back. Wasn't one assigned to Peenemünde for rocket trials pre-World War?
It's one of these really weird aircraft where the B series and the export ones were vastly different from the original series. The original series were open cockpits and slightly hunchbacked, and I think they experimented with rocket power. They have a little rocket motor in the tail of one, which I suspect you had to be fairly suicidal to pilot. Do you remember there was the Heinkel 100, which was a very sleek-looking thing that the Luftwaffe pretended was in mass production by basically shoving different unit markings on the same set of aircraft and taking pictures of them? They made out it was in squadron service. So I think the RAF at the time put it in all the recognition books, and then, of course, there weren't any, but they sold them. The Japanese tested them as well. They had one to test. But it's just one of those dead ends of the German aircraft industry. They did have some export success, which is what makes it interesting. It's got a two-bladed propeller, but a very sleek late 30s design, which I think gives it added interest.
It's almost like an early Spitfire, isn't it? The shapes of the wing.
Yeah.
The elliptical shade is absolutely beautiful. But no, I was just going to ask what reference material was available for the 112. Is there much?
There's one of those Squadron Signal long landscape kind of books years ago, which is quite useful. There are a couple of German ones, but basically there's not a lot. In fact, I suspect from what I've seen that there's probably maybe 30, 40 photos in total that appear in the same book. It's a classic one where the same pictures just appear all the time.
That's what I was thinking.
And that's not even on the internet, that's in print as well, because I don't think there were many pictures. Just occasionally some Romanian ones appear, I think, from people's albums. Yeah, it's been a devil of a job trying to find some cockpit pictures to add detail. But I managed to find, actually, funny enough, in that Squadron Signal book, and then I found one on a website slightly bigger.
How old's the kit? Is it an old release?
This boxing came out earlier this year. I think the model's a couple of years old.
All right. And as the goer, how would you consider it? Are these fairly good moulding and it's together well?
It actually fits really well. I'd say it's like a bit like a special hobby kit from about 7 or 8, 9 years ago. Those really good quality limited run rather than say like special hobby do now where they're better than that. But
only slightly less work than an MPM.
Yeah, I've got the classic airframes kit from years ago, which I pulled down from the loft to compare, and it is light years ahead of that. But it's perfectly buildable. If you just built it out of the box, you'd have a reasonably decent kit. There's some nose panels that are a bit.
Are you the guy that did the classic airframes Blenheim and did crazy things with the canopy?
I'm currently trying to attach the front of a classic airframes Mark 4 Blenheim to a Mark 1 Airfix kit, but maybe that's somebody else.
Did you do something with it?
Yes, no, that's me. Took the windscreen off and repositioned.
Yeah, I thought, oh my God, this guy's a bit keen.
That didn't really work actually. And somebody very nicely sent me a vac form nose section from do you remember a company called Arbor used to make resin models?
Yeah.
They had a Blenheim Mark 4 they didn't release because the classic airframes came out, and they had the vac form front nose for it, which I've got. I still think my nose windscreen angle's a bit better, but.
So what have you been buying recently, John?
Not actually very much. A pair of quick boost Umo engine exhausts is the only thing I bought recently for this. The last thing I bought before that was this kit, and before that it was the Hobby 2000 reboxing of the Hasegawa A4B Skyhawk, and then a load of Czech resin to convert it to an first version, an A4D one, which I ended up not.
And does nobody do a kit of that?
No, it's got some weird subtle differences from the Dash 2 from the A4B, and a lot of them you can do yourself. But I bought the resin thinking it would be a quicker build, and then I went down this rabbit hole of anguishing over the shape of the nose, just ridiculously anguishing. But I've worked out what the problem is. The Hasegawa tooling caters for all the nose versions of the Skyhawk. The underneath of the front of the nose changes contour, So when you put the Hasegawa nose on the early version, it's been shaped to fit the profile of the later lower nose. It's flatter. When you see photos of it from different angles, you think, why doesn't it look right? And I've worked out why that is now. But it has the externally vaned rudder. That's not on the first variant. Doesn't have any vortex generators on the wings, that kind of stuff. There's all these little subtle differences that make it a bit slicker. It looks more like the prototype, which makes sense because it was the first operation.
So it's not a major surgery to get it where you want it.
No, you could do the rudder yourself. You can obviously slice off the vortex generators. The nose, if I was building another one, I would be able to do it a lot quicker now because I've gone through the process of working it out. Apart from that, it's just fiddling around with details and things.
So your big thing, the actual shape, me, I'm all about colour. I like to get the colours right if I can. But for you, I'm assuming it's all about the shape and the accuracy. Is it a bit of everything?
It's a bit of everything. I have this kind of theory that all aircraft are a bit like people in that they have lots of similar things to them. Wings, nose, tail, but they all have little quirky points that give them their unique identifying features. It can almost be like the shape of a cowling as it angles round, or the curve of the top. Like on a Skyhawk, the curve at the top of the fin is actually quite characteristic, and it's quite hard to capture that. And if you don't get it, it doesn't look like a Skyhawk. It's the nuances I think I'd like to capture. I can live with something not being the right length as long as it's not terribly out, or the right wingspan, but sometimes you look at the shape like with the nose, and from some angles, it just doesn't seem to catch the character of it. And I guess that's what I find interesting.
I was just wondering if our guest for the pod, Mike Reeves from Facehanger, is going to be on this episode a little later. And he's doing a range of A4 bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, I think actually what the Hasegawa kit needs is an entire new front nose for the early ones, rather than just a new nose cone, which is what the kit gives you. But that is obviously a lot more of a complex bit of casting or 3D printing.
Have you managed to feast your eyes over this new one that's just come out? I can't remember the name of the company that does it.
Magic Factory.
Yes.
No, I haven't seen that. One of the guys in the magazine has just built it. A guy called Daz Greenwood's built it for scale aircraft modelling, and it looks like a really nice model. Yeah, let's hope they bring out some kind of earlier versions, although it's the A4M, so it's the later one with the redesigned cockpit. So I suppose that, they could do an A4N, I suppose, some of the Israeli markings, but that's about it.
Was there not an inaccuracy in the nose on that one as well? I seem to remember someone bringing out a 3D corrected nose for it.
Was that because it's moulded so it can be opened up, and was it one of those kits whereby building it all closed up was a
bit of a ball ache, possibly?
Yeah.
I know there was something about the nose that I remember reading.
The A4M and the A4N are the Skyhawks with every single bit and bump shoved onto them. They look vastly different from the early Skyhawks, and I think it's quite interesting the way that modern aircraft just have stuff scabbed on over time.
Yeah.
And what start out as lovely, graceful designs just end up as bumpy, lumpy things. Just stick it on wherever it works.
Imagine Kelly Johnson doing his nut when all they started putting the lumps and bumps on the thing.
It can't be an aircraft designer's favourite thing to see their pride and joy mutilate.
Yeah, quite. Okay. Anything else you've purchased, or is that it?
That's it. The problem is that because I'm building stuff for reviews and articles, quite often it all sounds fantastic, but it's sent to me. So you don't really have a lot of control over what you get sometimes. It's who wants to build this. The stuff that I've got, that Skyhawk was probably the last thing that I actually bought. And that will get built because it's half built now. I toyed with buying the new Airfix Jaguar, and then I thought, I'm just never going to build it. I bought the Airfix Buccaneer, the 148 scale one, and it's still sitting in the box with some ejection seats built with some straps on them, and that's about it.
Hopefully the Airfix kits on the shelf behind you actually get a little bit more traction.
The Meteor is in progress, you'll be very pleased to know. That's the blend-in with the Mark IV, and the Kinetic Kafir C10 and Cheetah D are for what probably will be an extremely expensive conversion to a Cheetah C.
Oh, blimey.
The South Africans did a scheme called Spotty. It was painted yellow with cheetah spots on it.
Yes.
And it looks fabulous. It is one of the prettiest looking aircraft you'll ever see. But to build it, you have to cannibalize the two together.
Decal sheet?
Oh, no, I got there's a South African decal sheet with masks that I've got.
Ah, okay.
From a company it's a model shop in Cape Town. This is the advantage of having a South African partner, which And there is a South African company and a guy that does resin conversions, but he doesn't do the Cheetah C anymore. So it's very much up to you. It's a stretched version. So that's another of my projects that probably will turn into an article, but that's going to take a lot more work than I thought. So that's going to have to wait for a rainy day.
Look forward to reading that in the future.
Thank you. Yes, so hopefully I'll do it justice.
G'day, it's Chris, the Promotions Officer from the Queensland Model Hobbies Expo. I'm here with your invitation to attend the 29th running of the Queensland Model Hobbies Expo in Ipswich, Queensland on August 16th and 17th at the Ipswich Event Centre at the Ipswich Showgrounds, 81 Warwick Road, Ipswich. Please visit qmhe.com to register your entries. Hoping to see you all in August. Cheers.
Benchmates, it's time for the Stash Inflation Report, the segment that proves your stash isn't too big, it's just economically ambitious.
Right, Stash Inflation Report for this episode, starting off with Sword, the RF-8A/G Photo Reconnaissance Crusader, or Eyes of the Fleet from Vietnam. Now this isn't an upgrade of the original kit, this is a brand new kit they are releasing from scratch. Complete with extended flaps, slots for the wings, you get decals big enough to make you grin. Covering with both the RF-8A and RF-8G variants, 4 marking options in total, brand new masks and a PUR ejection seat. A proper Cold War classic. The camera equipment crusader that spent its time taking high-speed photos over Vietnam while the rest of the fleet waved it off.
Academy are unleashing a new tool 1 to 35th Bell UA-1Y Venom, the utility helicopter, the modern twin-engine evolution of the original Huey, designed for the US Marine Corps, upgraded avionics, a 4-bladed rotor, improved performance, and built to work side by side with the AH-1Z Viper. Showing most of its components from the easier maintenance, it's been flying since the late 2000s and has seen action in Iraq and Afghanistan. The kit includes 8 sprues, 4 twitch parts, paint masks and solid weapons fit. You can choose between either the 12.7mm GAU-16 or the GAU-17A cruise-served machine guns, plus the LAU-68 rocket launcher. Boarding doors can be built open or closed. The rotor blades can fold and you get 5 United States Marine Corps markings covering the 2017 to 2020 era.
For the small-scale crowd, Academy have also got the 1144th Boeing's E-737 Peace Eye, South Korea's airborne early warning and control platform, based on the Boeing 737. It's basically a flying surveillance centre, fitted with that huge radar on top for long-range detection, tracking and control. 4 aircraft were delivered to the Republic of Korea Air Force between 2011 and 2012, massively boosting airspace monitoring over the Korean Peninsula. The kit comes with 4 sprues, plus clear parts, a choice of 2 markings and a paint mask.
Now for something stealthy, Trumpeter's 1 to 48 J-20S Mighty Dragon. This is a twin-seat version of China's 5th generation stealth fighter, developed by CAC for the PLA Air Force, first sighted in test flights in 2021. Publicly unveiled at Zhuhai in November 2024, and by mid-2025, already deep into development, reportedly admitted into formal service. Sleek, angular and purpose-built to slip past radar, it's a modern jet modeller's dream, provided that you like painting very sharp edges.
Edwards next up with their 148th Ki-115 Tsurugi, the Japanese World War II suicide aircraft. This limited edition includes Edwards' own plastic parts, 3 marking options, pre-painted photo etch and paint masks. It's a stark piece of history in kit form, but a fascinating build for those who appreciate the rarer subjects.
And if you want to build something with a bit more range, Edward are also doing the Schnellbomber JU-88A4 in 48 scale. The German World War II twin-engined multi-role bomber. This limited edition kit features the ICM plastic part, 6 marking options, decals from Edward, pre-painted photo paint masks and resin wheels. The A4 variant was the medium bomber version capable of taking on multiple mission roles, all of which were an excuse to do some creative weathering.
Finally, for the armour fans, Border Models are releasing a late Sherman M4A1 in 1/35th scale. This one's got it all. Accurate decals for 4 paint schemes, photo etch and clear parts, workable suspension and track links. 2 types of gun barrel, metal and plastic, and a complete set of US Army stowage including boxes, packages, plus a captured German helmet and gas mask for diorama potential. Basically, your workbench just became a Normandy supply dump. What do we got on the nautical front for this episode?
The latest ship releases, V Hobby are releasing a 1/700th USS Independence. This is CVL 22. It's the Second World War light aircraft carrier based on the hull of a Cleveland-class light cruiser. We can expect a waterline injection moulded kit with a detailed hangar deck, but at the expense of providing a measly 2 to 3 airplanes. Revel are releasing 1/144th scale box set of 3 historic Bundeswehr submarines. This includes the Type 21 class Wilhelm Bauer, the Type 206A class, and the Type 212A class. These 3 Cold War and modern day subs are being released to mark the 70th anniversary of the Bundeswehr. And whilst the kit might be a rebox of older toolings, it is nevertheless a nice addition for Cold War submodelers to get all 3 types in one set. Revel is also releasing a new tooling 1/72nd scale midget submarine of the Molch type. This is a World War II German midget submarine featuring external torpedoes and an interesting camo scheme. Triumph model, they're releasing a 1/700th HMS Vanguard. It's the last battleship ever commissioned by the Royal Navy. This will be a resin moulded kit with 3D printed parts. A full hull version of this set will be available very shortly, if not before the release of this episode. Triumph are also releasing 1/350th scale kits of the Japanese destroyers Akizuki and Shiratsuyu. 2 different classes of Japanese destroyer available as basic, full hull and also upgraded version kits. Triumph have also announced their intentions to follow these 2 kits with a boxing of the Fubuki class next year. Starling Models are releasing a 1/700th waterline 3D printed kit of HMS Scorpion, one of the wartime S-class emergency destroyers, with parts in the box to also complete HMS Venus of the V-class and the Norwegian destroyer HNOMS Stord. TACOM are planning on releasing 2 1/350th scale destroyer kits. These will be the Soviet destroyer Gremyashchi from 1942 and the People's Liberation Army Navy destroyer Anshan. And then last but certainly not least, Verifier have announced a 1/350th USS Smith DD-17. And if you couldn't tell from the serial number, this is one of the first generation World War I era US destroyers, and it will be a full hull injection moulded kit.
And that's your lot. Fresh releases across air, land and sea, mostly sea this episode. As always, we accept no responsibility for the dent in your bank account or the smug grin you'll be adding these to the stash.
Models Without Borders is proud to announce that registration is now open for its first ever global online event, Virtual Model Exhibition 2025. VMX25 invites scale models from around the world to showcase their work in a fully virtual format that reflects the hobby's growth and diversity. Registration is $10, allowing each participant to enter up to 5 models. Builders can choose whether each model is evaluated, display only, or both. Evaluations will use MWB's skill-based system, which considers the modeller's goals, experience, and craftsmanship. The system is designed to support growth, celebrate creativity, and recognise achievement across all skill levels, without comparison or competition. VMX25 winners will receive a unique gold, silver, or bronze award or certificate of merit. VMX 2025 is now open through to August the 15th. For updates and registration, visit www.modelers.org. Remember, that's modelers with 2 L's. And subscribe or follow Modelers Without Borders on social media. We wish you the best of luck and can't wait to see your wonderful creations.
For this episode's Precision by Passion, we're heading into the world of finely crafted resin accessories, the kind that make you look at your kit and think, yes, that's how it should have been in the box. Our guest is a name many of you will already know, Mike Reeves, the founder and driving force behind Phase Hanger Resin Accessories. From cockpits to pylons and intakes to exhausts, Mike's parts are designed with the modeler's obsession for accuracy and fit in mind. But Phase Hanger isn't just about aftermarket upgrades. It's about one modeler's journey from pouring resin in the early days to embracing the possibilities of modern 3D printing. It's about craftsmanship, innovation, and listening to the community to produce exactly what's needed, right down to the smallest detail. Mike's story is one of turning passion into precision, building a business that supports and inspires modelers all over the world. And today we get to hear how it all began, how the process works, and what it's like to run a specialist business in our hobby. Mike, welcome to Precision by Passion.
Thank you for having me. This is wonderful. I really appreciate the opportunity.
You are very welcome. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. How did you get into scale modeling, and what has kept you hooked?
That's a little bit of a fun story. I got into scale modeling probably when I was 5 years old, so just over 50 years ago. My dad used to work at Sears in the paint department, but he got in, and my dad was a modeler, and my brother is also a modeler. So my dad got in really good with the toy department supplier that brought models to Sears, because back in the day they sold them. It turns out that every time they had a box that was open or damaged, the guy just gave them to my dad. He would come home like once every 3 months with a trunk full of model kits. And I would sit at the kitchen table in Michigan watching him and my brother go through all of these cool kits. My dad built semi-trucks. My brother built cars. I built nothing. I actually sat and watched. And as time grew, my dad would bring home a snap-tight and help me build a snap-together model. I had a thing for airplanes. I always have. So that was the beginning of my journey. I went through my early years, pre-teen, building models. Summertime was staying up till 2 a.m. at my little desk in my bedroom, just scrounging around any money I had, go to the toy store and I would buy a model. That passion turned into, in my teenage years, I worked at a hobby shop, a local hobby shop, and got the nice discount. My paycheck basically went to the hobby shop. And my little meager collection of airplanes turned into a big collection of airplanes by the time I was 18 to 20 years old. And then I did take a hiatus in my early 20s, going to college and the Air Force and all of that. But again, working with airplanes in the Air Force just kept driving my passion for aviation in general. I actually fell in love with aviation because of the Blue Angels. When they flew A4 Skyhawks, they used to fly in and out of the local airport by my parents' house, about 2 miles away from our house. My dad would set up a ladder during the week because they would be there for the week. Set up a ladder and I'd climb on the roof after school and watch them practice and then go to the show. So all of that has just compounded into just a never-ending love, especially for jet aircraft. I went through my World War II stage, but I still do. I have World War II stuff, but jets have always been my passion. And that's how I got into the business. I wanted to improve things. I'd noticed that I could actually scratch build a little bit, and we just could go off from there.
So whereabouts in the US Air Force, or what stations were you at? And what aircraft did they operate?
I was at Langley Air Force Base, Virginia, F-15s, Pittsburgh, Germany, F-15s, and then came back to the States, went to Eglin, Florida, F-15s, and then finished up out here at Luke Air Force Base with F-16s.
Cool.
Fighters are the passion.
I get that. Berg was more pleasurable than actually serving at the American stations, or?
Absolutely. If I could transform or transport myself back to that time and live in Bitburg again, I would 100% of the time do it. It was just so much fun being around a different culture, being able to travel to other countries. Heck, we lived 15 minutes away from Luxembourg by car. I could throw a rock and hit it. But yeah, the entire experience of nearly 4 years there, I will cherish forever. It was my absolute favorite place in the world.
Okay, fantastic.
Before you launched phase hanger resin accessories, could you talk a bit more about the kind of skills that you'd garnered in the hobby, led to you forming phase hanger, and what helped you in doing that?
Initially, it actually just started with 2 mics resin. A buddy of mine, there was a second mic involved, and we were good. The reason the 2 mics thing came about is I was very good friends with Bob Sanchez of Two Bobs, but our mutual friend named Mike Valdez, who owns Sierra Hotel Models, he and I partnered up for 2 mics, and I was doing the casting. He was doing a lot of the initial design work, and then he drifted away, and I took over. So it actually was 1 mics. It started out with just, well, it's just going to be a fun little part-time side hustle while I'm working a 40-hour-a-week job, but it blossomed fairly quickly, and it was a niche of modern airplane equipment, mostly F-15, F-16 stuff, because that's the stuff that he and I had been around. It's hard to explain. It grew faster than I was able to really keep up. We started in 2005, and I did the resin all the way to around 2019 and made the switch to 3D, but I know we'll talk about that as well. The product line grew. My time shrunk. It's just been a very difficult staying ahead of the curve for demand and things like that, especially being a one-person operation, which it still is. As far as why we did it, it was literally just to get some stuff out there that people had not seen. At the time, most aftermarket guys were doing World War II stuff. That was the biggest when Barracuda Cast or Compass Rose, whatever Roy was back in that time, was really dominating with World War II stuff. And there wasn't much unless you wanted Aries back in the day and maybe some Edward photo etch. There wasn't nothing out there really on the modern jet side. So we just tackled it from there. Once I got into it by myself, I then was lucky enough to have some good friends that also did a lot of scratch building, because my time for doing masters was really getting cut short because I was a slave to pouring resin. Luckily, I had some friends that came along and did masters for me. It's just blossomed from there. It's really hard to explain, but it's had its ups and downs, and you get burned out. I've stuck with it through thick and thin, to be honest with you.
What inspired you to start Phase Hanger? Back then it was 2 mics as well. Was there a particular light bulb moment that convinced you that there was a market for your products?
Yeah, what really inspired me, again, it was just a lack of aftermarket out there for the things I like to build. Funnily enough, it's always been a me business, if that makes sense. The inspiration was just to get things out there that were quality, because there at the time, like I said, Aries was the big thing. But the quality of getting resin, especially made here in the States, the quality was terrible overall. You'd open the bag of resin and the odor alone would knock your socks off. The day it happened for me was when I spoke to a well-known name in the hobby, Scotty Battistone, who was the master guy for Cutting Edge. He was the master maker and a brilliant person and modeler. He reached out to me one day and said, "Hey, I think you've got what it takes to make this go. What can I help you with?" This was at the tail end of Meteor Productions and Cutting Edge, so he didn't really care. So he was telling me, this is the resin we use. It doesn't smell. The RTV we used. And funnily enough, for the, 15 years or 16 years I cast resin, I never changed it. I used the resin he recommended, the RTV he recommended. And the inspiration was really, you get an order. And it's somebody from England or somebody from Australia or Mexico or Canada. And it was so inspiring that somebody from Phoenix, Arizona, so my little square, somebody outside of that circle wanted my stuff. And you can call it even an ego stroke, I guess, to a point. But it was just like I would tell my wife, I'm sending a box to England. Somebody in England bought my stuff. It was just proud. It made me proud. And that's been the driving force ever since. The early days was just getting products out there that people from around the globe started to order. And it steamrolled since. But yeah, that's the inspiration. It's time consuming, it's tiring, it's exhausting, but there's no better feeling than getting an order. And then someone telling you, I absolutely loved what I got. That makes the time that we put into this, especially as a small business, that's what makes it worth it. Because someone is just as passionate about their project using my parts as I am creating those parts, if that makes sense. Does that answer?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I actually bought some back when you had 2 mics for the 32nd Revell Unifighter Typhoon, because you actually did the internal weapons rail pylon for the inboard, because it never came in the kit, and they're superb. Absolutely superb.
Good news. We're redesigning it for 3D printing for the 32nd and the 48 scale Eurofighters from Revell, because to this day, there's no better Eurofighter kit out there, in my opinion. I've had my hands on both the Trumpeter kits, and let's just say they're no longer part of my collection.
Rivet Fest is, to say the least. And it's a composite aircraft, and it's full of rivets. Yeah, they did the same with the F-35B as well in 32nd. Paid 160 quid for it, opened it up, and it's a rivet fest.
Yes.
Absolutely shocking.
And I live in the state that trains 85% of the F-35A guys. I can tell you, having been up close to several of them, there's not a rivet that you're really going to see at airplane. If you've never seen one fly, it's pretty cool. It gets a bad rap, I know, but from the pilots and stuff that I know that have flown it, they say it's a very formidable weapon system. They can't really go much into it, but all airplanes have teething problems. The Eurofighter did. But yeah, the F-35. So you got me onto I'm wearing an F-35 shirt. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. I'm sorry. Absolutely love the banter as well, not just the questions. It's always fun to just talk.
Yes. The F-35 is an interesting aircraft. The Royal Air Force has them, and they're coming into service, as are the Royal Navy aircraft examples as well. But we've just modified part of our order for our current version to 11 or 12 A models.
It's the A model.
Yeah, it's going to be used in the nuclear role, but also used for training, because they realise that we're actually eating into the hours for the F-35B.
Yeah.
We're just doing circuit training, and why do you need something that's as complex as that for just banging the circuit? So they'll be used for training as well.
We've just lost another F-35B because it's currently landed in Japan. So, yeah.
We've had one in India, now we've got Japan.
We did get the India one back, though.
For those who aren't familiar, Hank, can you walk us through what phase hanger resin specializes in and what types of products you create?
As we spoke about earlier, what we do are 3D print accessories, mostly in 1/48 scale. We do have some 38-second and some 70-second, mainly for modern jet aircraft. But we are branching out into other avenues on some things. Right now, the line I carry in my store is Flightline resin. The owner is Richard Van Zant, who is a dear friend of mine as well. He does about 75% of my 3D design work. He is a CAD master, but his line really specializes in weapons, pods, ECM gear, and things like that. Now he's branched out and is doing a lot of landing gear. Well, I know we have 48 and 32nd scale Super Hornet landing gear, A4 Skyhawk and 48th and 32nd. So his niche is more of the weapons side. And like I said, now with some of this landing gear stuff, my side is a lot of pylons, flight controls. I'm getting just released, which I'm sure you guys know. I think I'm up to 13 sets for the new Airfix Jaguar.
Yes, I've ordered the NASA duct from you.
I appreciate that, and I'll get it out quickly. And the whole thinking behind it, again, is we're not here to compete and go head-to-head with some of the big names. We try to really focus on what is needed for this kit that one of us is probably working on. So like with all this Jag stuff, I had gotten a couple of Airfix Jaguars from Hanitz, because you can't find Airfix in the States. So Hanitz got them to me really quick, actually. And I sent one to Richard, and he immediately started the kit. And then next thing I know, he's like, hey, do you want this? Do you want this? Do you want this? I'm like, I'll take anything. And I pay him for his work. So he's a subcontractor, but like I said, very good friend. And they'll send me the files, print them in the setup that I deem correct and all of that, and get them out on the market as quickly as possible and hope that some of the other guys haven't done it yet. There's companies out there that we find out, oh, they've already done that. We're going to do it too. And our goal is not to we don't want to go head to head with anybody. It's just not worth it. It's, again, more for our own personal builds and satisfaction. And we just turn those products into actual product that we resell, which is really nice because there's a personal connection in each part, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's not, hey, I went out and measured the wheels on an F7U cut. Let's go ahead and draw some and put them out there. No, 99% of our products are things that we actually are using on our own kits. So I think that's what makes us stand out a bit from the rest is we could come out with something, RA5 Vigilante wheels. If Drew Manton over there in the UK, which I'm sure you do. Drew is a good guy. I go on their interesting modeling video, their live stream here and there. And Drew did several things for me now. He's gotten very adept at his CAD drawing and said, hey, do you want these RA5 wheels? I'm like, why not? Yeah. Because the great thing is you pay for the file. I can run in as many or as little as I want now.
Okay. Who's up next? Nevs.
Yeah, it's me. Cheers, Brownie. So, Mike, could you talk me through what your design process looks like? I know you've said that perhaps 75% of the product is outsourced, but perhaps the bits that you're familiar with, where the initial idea comes from, the kind of research that goes into it, right through to producing that ready-to-ship product. Could you talk me through those different stages?
Absolutely. Number one, like I had said earlier, 95% of the products that we do, again, are something that myself, Richard Van Zant from Flightline Resin, Drew Manton, Craig Sargent down in New Zealand, they're all very much in my design team, if that makes sense. So essentially it comes down to, hey, I'm looking at doing this or these items. Would you be interested in having them in the line? 99.9% of the time, I'm going to say yes, because I think the more you expand, the better your business will grow. And you never know. Some things you think are going to be popular aren't, and things that you're like, yeah, let's do it. They sell in bucket loads. So the design process literally starts with, okay, let's research, let's look at what the kit offers or does not offer in many cases. Now let's research measurements and things like that on the actual airplane or pylon or whatever it happens to be. Once we do that, we'll reach out to some friends of ours that go around. A lot of them go to museums and really take detailed photos, and they'll happily send them to us. And in return, we'll send them some free stuff, essentially, just for the use of their research material, much of which, though, can also be found online. So we do a lot of online research. Once that happens and we've got to set our minds on what we're going to do, Fusion 360 is the CAD program. I'm in the infancy stages of learning it. Look how long it took me to get on this Zoom call. I'm in the infancy stages because, again, I'm the production guy and the packaging and shipping. I have a lot of hats that I wear, so my time to do that is very limited. Luckily, my other guys that do the CAD, they get very passionate about doing that one design, and they'll set everything else aside and design it, and then they'll send me a preview. What do you think? I'm like, are you confident with it? Because I am. It looks perfect to me. And so once the CAD renderings are done, I get the STL file. I set it up in it's called Chitubox. It's the program that I use to send the file. Yeah. It basically saves it to my computer as a document, and then I send it to the printer. But there's a process there too that can be quite involved, and that's called supporting. So the big difference between, as you guys probably know if you have any 3D parts, the big difference between 3D printing and the resin casting is you don't need a razor saw really anymore. There's no massive casting block to remove. It's literally these little supports that are just like poles. But there's a trick to it because in this day and age with 3D printing, it's actually still in its infancy in this type of business. 3D printers started out as dental, is where the whole thing really came into play, was dental work. But the one issue that still happens, print lines, topic of choice a lot with parts that you get. Many cases, they are almost impossible to get rid of all of them. Again, it's the technology.
Yeah.
So anyhow, getting back on track with what you asked. So we set up the print, get it supported, and in many cases, we'll do 10 or 15 different ways to support it to get the most reliable print as well as the most clean, if that makes sense. But trying to avoid as many print lines as you can. There's weird angles that you'll see on some prints and things like that. It's literally every guy that you talk to that does this will tell you that is one of the more complicated parts beyond the 3D design itself. So once I'm happy with a print, essentially I set it up as a part number, and I like to do as many as I can on one build plate. Build plates aren't very big. They're 7 inches by 10 inches, something like that. So you're limited with how much you can fit per build. And in many cases, like I alluded to earlier as well, sometimes you can't fit all of one part number based on the quantity of parts in the set on one printer. So then comes that time balance, and this kind of goes into the packaging, availability, like you had asked me. You really have to plan, okay, I've got an order for 15 of these. That could take up 3 printers, and that could take 24 hours of printing time. Meanwhile, those 3 printers are being used, so other parts aren't being printed. So it's really a juggling act as far as getting things ready to print. Because of lessons learned, I try to run my production stuff that I'm using for orders during the day, and I'll print new stuff overnight while I'm in bed. So the good thing is that their employees work 24/7 and they don't complain, and I don't pay them. But the big drawback about the whole thing is just the time that it takes. But that said, it's much more time friendly than resin casting, because resin casting, I have to take time to make a mold box. I have to take 24 hours at a minimum once I pour the mold for it to set up, and then I'd have to demold the part and hope that part didn't have so many undercuts in it that it tore the mold. So the whole process actually is far cleaner, far cheaper, and far more efficient than resin casting. But it can take, in many cases, a month and a half to get a file to the point of where I'm ready to release production.
Yeah, and I don't think a month to a month and a half is anything to be overly concerned about. If you compare it, yeah, of course, what you're doing is on a far smaller scale to the likes of when we were talking to Revel and their product line and the time it takes them to go through masters and different designs. But I think one of the benefits of 3D printing, like you say, Mike, is that you can just leave something overnight and wake up in the morning and be like, has it succeeded? Has it failed? And individual prints don't cost too much, do they? There is room for failure, whereas perhaps going back to the more traditional casting and thinking, this entire master is going to have to be redone, I think there is far more margin for error.
Oh, it absolutely. The one benefit that's really huge to me is literally every part that comes off a 3D printer is identical to the one sitting next to it. They're all essentially their own master, if that makes sense. Whereas with casting, you get some casts come out perfect. The next one you pull, tore the mold, or that mold is starting to wear. So now you're starting to see the quality breakdown. And then you have to start doing the math in your head. Okay, how much did that RTV cost me for this wing section? Because RTV is ridiculously expensive. And so you try to get your mold stretched out as long as you can, quite literally stretched out. But the moment you start seeing the quality degrade, or you pull it out and you're happy with the first 10 pulls, but then the 11th pull, half the RTV is stuck to the part that you poured. RTV versus 3D printing, or just traditional resin casting versus 3D printing, my masters never run out on 3D printing. You can eventually break down a master in RTV casting. Heck, I've broken parts just demolding them for the first mold.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more user-friendly. And as you said, in the long run, it is cheaper. The real investment is the printer.
the initial investment.
But they pay for themselves fairly quickly, but they also go bad. You get the LCD screens, sometimes the light array, you get a couple lights that don't work anymore, and you get these little circles, and we call them little circles of death. You could still run prints on there, but you know that at least 2 or 3 parts on that plate are going to be bad. They're just going to be hollow, basically. I've got one right now that I run small stuff that I run in huge quantities. So if I get 10 or 15 of them bad, it's only costing me cents versus the cost of a mold that may go bad. And the time it takes to rebuild another mold box, pour the RTV, and wait on that. Back in my day when I was casting, it was at most 6 molds of a part, at most, because again, the RTV was so expensive. Now it's a $21 bottle of resin, a quart, and it goes quite a ways. And if I get a bad plate, I scrape them off, clean the vat out, and run it again. That's pennies versus dollars. So it is a far more efficient way of doing things.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Mike, at some point, obviously, you made the decision to move into 3D printing. What was your main drives behind it? What current setup have you got? What printers do you use?
Okay. Richard Van Zandt was the main reason I got into 3D printing. And it's just for the exact reasons I was just telling Nev. You're wasting so much money and time casting. And at this time, Richard was just fairly new at doing it. And I'm like, are you sure? He goes, it's the future of this hobby. He goes, I can guarantee you it's the future of the hobby, and you're going to get left behind if you keep casting. So that was a big decision. My first printer I bought was, funnily enough, I still have it, and it's actually still being used, and it's 6 years old. It's the longest lasting printer I've had, by the way. The main reason was just the cost, the time. Again, I talked to you guys before, summertime here, my garage gets to about 116 degrees in the inside, and I have to be out there casting in that. And with the heat, when you're mixing resin to pour into a mold, the flash on that is so fast that I would be pouring and would literally be setting up as it's coming out of the cup going into the mold, and it would just string and it would be hard. And so then I got this half poured part, and I literally had to almost run from mold to resin. It was just getting to the point where the cost was not effective. The printers aren't cheap. I spend $600-700 a piece on my printers now. And sure, there's a lot more expensive ones out there, but I don't have the $20,000 for a commercial 3D printer, nor do I have the space for it. I'm at max capacity right now with the 7 that I use. Right now, I have 4 Elegoo Saturn IV Ultras. I have 2 Elegoo Saturn III Ultras. Are they Ultras? Maybe they're not Ultras. And then my old guy, I still have my Saturn II. The good thing is Richard Van Zandt, myself, and Drew Manton and Craig Sargent, we all use the same printers. So it really helps us when we're testing parts and things like that. We all know each other's setups, our print times, our layer heights, and all of that. So essentially what it does is it provides a quality backup for each of us. I would say, hey, I'm having a hard time with this file. Send me the file. Let me print it. Oh, let's try supporting it like this. So it's far more efficient, for lack of a better term, when you have a way to put a second set of eyes or third or even fourth set of eyes on some of these more finicky prints, if I may, versus here's your master. Go ahead and now you figure out how to put a resin block on it and how it's best going to cast and give you the most mold life. So the 3D printing part, it literally, when Richard said it's the future, I'm like, honestly, I can't wait, because I was so tired of casting resin. It's nice to be able to walk away and sit on my couch at night knowing that my 7 employees are working away for me and not complaining. Whereas my wife would get mad at me when I was casting resin because, again, you only have so many molds, and I would be casting, if I had a Hanitz order, he'd order $4,000 worth of product from me. That's after the 40% discount that he got. So if you do the math, $4,000, it was a lot of parts And I would be out in my garage till 1 a.m. during the week and get back up at 7 o'clock in the morning, go back at it. And my wife was getting to the point where I was a stranger in the house. So this has actually really put us in a much better spot overall, just as a family, which you might think it's funny, but it's true. And the other thing that she works from home, or she literally works in the same room as me. This is a far more beneficial setup doing the 3D printing. And it's really nice also because I can build stock. When I was casting, I never had any stock on hand. So every part of this full process is just faster, more efficient, and you can get far more detail out of a printed part. And I know you guys have seen some out there that'll just blow your mind. I just bought his Jaguar seats. My goodness. They are a work of art.
The stunning.
And I am not afraid to give kudos to other small guys out there that are working hard at this business. And I told him, he actually PM'd me because I brought him up on my page on Facebook. I'm like, you guys support him. I know we're not going to do Jaguar seats, especially now after seeing those things, but help him make a name for himself because he's worth it. And it really, I think the small guys, we all take pride and have each other's backs in a lot of cases, not just with the 3D printing stuff, but overall, even back when it was casting, we could talk to each other like colleagues, whereas you talk to some of the other bigger companies and you don't even know who you're actually speaking with. Most of the time you talk to a small company like ours, you're talking to the owner. And I think giving that customer service as well is huge. And
Absolutely.
it's an absolute benefit to all of us to be on that same page and scratch each other's backs when we can.
Thank you, Mike. Just one last question for you. So looking ahead, like you said, thinking 3D printing being the future, where do you see phase hanger going for the next few years? Is there anything just over the horizon, the latest tech, softwares, printers, what have you, that's going to change the way you do things for the future?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. Right now, just going from, like I said, the Saturn II to the Saturn IV in 5 years of development, the technology and the quality and now the speed of printing without losing quality, I should make that clear too. And on the horizon, the printers are getting far more, the performance, for lack of a better term, is getting so high. They're getting far more reliable. The quality and the way that you can set up prints and get some of the detail in that we're getting now is going to probably double in quality in the next 2 or 3 years. And we'll be able to churn naturally. It'll be more of an investment for guys like me because I'm going to buy the next group of higher technology printers because I have to keep up. You have to keep up or you're just going to get left behind, and I'm not willing to be left. So the expense is going to be a little bit more. Actually, they've actually stayed fairly comparable in pricing without huge jumps, given the whole tariff situation could change things. But we hope not. At least it seems to be slowing down in its manifestation here in the States, which is good. But I think overall, the quality, the speed, and the creativity that the designers can use, knowing that they have this new technology at their fingertips, is going to really increase the footprint of companies such as mine, hopefully. But I also see one negative issue happening with the industry as well. Now it's everybody that has a little bit of CAD knowledge and buys a couple 3D printers. Suddenly everybody's jumping in and the market's actually going to shrink. So hopefully we'll stay. We're not a big company by any stretch, obviously, but I think we're a known entity enough that people are going to still support what we put out. But that, I think that everybody jumping in, it's either going to help or really hurt the industry. I don't see how it can really hurt. It's going to hurt other companies.
People aren't going to start reinventing the wheel when you've actually already produced the wheel and you can actually buy it off the shelf, because obviously it's going to save time.
I'm also going to say that I think a lot of, and it's already happening, a lot of mainstream model manufacturers are going to start adding 3D printed parts in their kits. because they know the limitations of injection molding and what they can get out of it. Edouard does it with Profi packs. Now you're getting some 3D printed stuff. Ari is going to be adding, Craig Sargent's doing Kotari's 3D printed stuff. I would love to be able to get in with Airfix and say, hey, if we did this for you, how many sets would you like? And they could add them into their, given my overall profit might be down, but at least my stuff's getting out there.
Exactly.
So that, to me, to answer your question more clearly, I foresee companies, smaller companies that put out a hopefully high quality product. We could actually be really good subcontractors for some of these major kit producers. So they don't have to buy the equipment. They don't have to worry about it. Here's the design. Do it. I literally just did that for Sprue Brothers for the EB conversion, the 48 scale E2B. Scott Brown, who did the decal sheet, reached out to me like, hey, do you think you could print these for the Nationals? I'm like, it was 2 weeks, but yeah, I could print them. So I sent them off, and Sprue Brothers sells them. They credit me and they paid me immediately. I would love to see more of that happening on this side of the business. I think that's going to be the main growth point that we have to look at. I have a business plan, and what's my next step, and how and when can I accomplish that step? A lot of times it ends up being pushed back or it gets convoluted, the whole scheme of things. But I think anybody who does this and does it for a living is going to have to stay with the times, with the technology that's coming. I've already heard that the new Elegoo printer is going to be ridiculous, and I'll have to push a couple out of the workshop and buy at least a couple of those to start. To keep up with the Joneses, you really have to keep up with the technology, I guess is what I'm saying. And you have to be able to not just do that. You have to find other ways to expand how you do business, because just having a web shop distributor isn't probably going to cut it forever. Looking forward, I can see how we might try to hook up with a major manufacturer to get more new pylons for their kits or something, whatever they deem is needed. We would be happy to work with them. And at that point, more distribution and things. So that's where I'm looking ahead, is getting our products into other different avenues, if you will.
Yeah. Okay, so where can people find your products? And are you looking to expand your distributor network? Or more to the point, who are your distributors at the moment?
Sure. Number one, the best way to get a hold of my products is through my website, www.phasehanger, Hangar, resin.com. We also have an eBay store. If you're an eBayer, you can just look up Phase Hanger, and we have all of our products on eBay. It's actually cheaper to go direct, but we'll leave that there. Currently, we only have one distributor, and that's the 48ers out of Cyprus.
Really?
Yes, and we're always looking for more, even if it's a chain of stores. We had spoke earlier, we've reached out to them. They don't really want to add more aftermarket at the moment. So any place, if it can save our customers money, especially our overseas customers, postage isn't cheap.
I know that.
And really can put people off from ordering. Here in the States, I don't have that problem. And I'm actually not looking for distribution in the United States. And the reason being, why sell to somebody that's just going to cut my price and I have to pay them a huge discount to sell my stuff? I do like that way here in the States of just ordering direct. But if anybody has ideas on who to speak to, feel free to reach out to me. Oh, and you can also go to my Facebook page, the Phase Hanger Resin Facebook page, and there's a Shop Now button. So you can just go through Facebook if you want to. It will jump you right over to the website. That's the most efficient way right now. Again, we're looking for expansion, but it's hard to get the market right now. And distributors are also cutting back on spending because there's so many product lines out there. They can only support so many.
Okay, fantastic. Mike, thanks for sharing your story. From the early days of pouring resin to the cutting-edge 3D printing you're doing today, it's clear that what you create isn't just about replacing kit parts. It's about inspiring modelers to push their builds further and achieve the best results possible. If you want to see Mike's work, head over to phasehangerresin.com or look up Phasehanger Resin Accessories on social media. Mike, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and we look forward to seeing what Phase Hanger comes up with next. And hopefully you'll agree to come back on again in the future and remain a friend of the show.
Oh, absolutely. This is fun. I love doing stuff like this, and I really appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to come out and speak. And it's fun because none of this is rehearsed. And I find myself getting lost in some of the questions and maybe going a little bit off topic. That's
Not a problem in the slightest.
But there's a lot to speak about.
It makes you more natural, Mike.
And I don't want it to feel scripted. I want it to always just be, you're talking to me. This is what you're getting. We just want to keep it fun and continue to improve the hobby, I think, and for people to just have more fun with their builds.
It's time for the IPMS UK Dispatches. All the latest news and updates for the Society with Mark Sanderson, Publicity Officer, IPMS UK.
So, Mark, third IPMS Dispatches. What have you got for this episode?
Brownie, I've got some really good shows actually, and we'll kick it off with the first one, which is IPMS Womborne, I think I've pronounced that correctly, model show, which is on Saturday, August the 23rd. It opens from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Probably everybody's heard that sort of timing. And it features the club displays, some traders, an open competition that people can get involved in, and on-site refreshments. The address that people they need to know, the postcode. I've completely forgotten my phonetic alphabet, so I'm just going to make it up as I go along. D for Delta, Y for Yankee, 6, 8, Alpha Papa, and that's at the
Perfect.
Oh, there you go then. Kings Winford Community Centre. So that's what people should look out for. On the same day, and the Scottish part of our string, there is the Aberdeen Scale Model Show, which is also on Saturday, August the 23rd, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m, and promises to have club and SIG displays, traders, competition, make and take for obviously what people are, if they're not familiar with, where you can turn up, pay a small donation, make a model there of whatever they've got available, and then take it away and finish off at home. And they've also got a kit swap sale as well. Going to quite rare nowadays. Entry for that one is £7 for adults and £4 for children, with under 6 going free. The all-important postcode is A for Alpha, B for Bertie, 156, L for Lima, N for November. And that is Curl, Aberdeen in E-Day Walk, Summerhill, Aberdeen.
You nearly got there, right? A for Bravo, but close enough.
And the next one up is Stoke-on-Trent Model Show, which is on Sunday, August the 31st, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. That one is at the Priestwood Centre, the Staffordshire County Showground. Postcode is Sierra Tango 180 Bravo Delta, and that is £5 admission to get in. And the last one, which in my opinion is the most important one because it's my own club show. I'm not biased at all. Which is Model.
Of course not.
Yeah, Model Fest, which is held on Saturday, September the 6th, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. again, and that is at the Hart Leisure Centre in Fleet. Postcode for that one is Giraffe Umbrella 515 Echo Echo, and that has got lots of free on-site parking, on-site refreshments, club display and traders, with admission only being £5. Under 16s go free when they're accompanied by an adult. And I know that's going to be absolutely a mega show. So I will be in attendance. I know there'll be some really good traders because I've heard all about it from my club's own committee. So yeah, look out for that one.
But you say about being the best, of course, not being at all biased whatsoever. Boulders, do you know anything about the Bolton show coming up?
I do, yes. So we've now got the dates for the Bolton IPMS model show for 2026. It is Sunday, the 25th of January, between 10 and 4. The ticket prices, so for adults is £6, concessions and under 16s is £4, and the family ticket is £15, which is for 2 adults and 2 children. The theme for next year is 80 years of Tamiya, because Tamiya is 80 years old in 2026.
And for any traders that are interested in coming to the show, who do they need to contact?
So they need to contact myself on the email address, which is showmanager.boltonipms@gmail.com. And I will be doing a couple of shows from September onwards. I've got business cards where I will be going around and seeing if we can trail any new traders and any new exhibitors
Fantastic.
I do have one last bit of news, which is IPMS related to Scale Model World as well, which is that the tickets for Scale Model World are due to go on sale. Advanced ticket sales are due to go on sale on the 11th of August, and they are available from the IPMS's website, which is ipmsuk.org, and also the Telford International Centre website, which is tictelford.com. So they're both available on there for people who need to purchase a ticket. Can obviously go along there and purchase a ticket.
Okay, so what date was that again then? They go on sale?
That's Monday, the 11th of August.
Okay, so they're already on sale then.
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay, until the next episode, Mark, thanks very much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Brilliant. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Welcome to the next Rivet Counters Minute, brought to you by Matters of Scale. Today, we're shining a spotlight on the legendary C-47 Skytrain, also known as the Dakota. This iconic aircraft was known for its incredible versatility, serving in roles from troop transport to cargo delivery and even medical evacuation. It was powered by the robust Pratt & Whitney R18-3092 twin Wasp engines, which contributed to its legendary status in aviation history. Now you can bring that same authenticity to your 172 scale model with our brand new engine set. This set includes 2 exquisitely detailed engines, capturing every detail from the spark plug wires to the oil lines and prop governor, all faithfully reproduced in 172 scale. And remember, this is just the beginning. Many more engines in this scale are on the way from Matters of Scale, where every detail matters. Don't forget to visit us at www.mattersofscale.com.
Our guest for this episode is proof that you can mix art, history, and a healthy dose of modelling madness into one remarkable career. Born at the end of the finest decade known to humanity, Jon Tabinor grew up just outside the Potteries in the UK, studied fine art printmaking at St Edmund Hall, Oxford University, and then spent 25 years in the world of print and design before deciding it was time for something new. A keen modeller since the age of 5, Jon found himself with a bit of extra time during the 2020 lockdown and used it to start building and writing for Scale Aircraft Modelling magazine under Chris Meddings. When Gary Hatcher took over, Jon became assistant editor, penning the monthly Aircraft in Profile column, along with editing and proofing work for Sam. He's since gone on to edit Model Truck World, design Toy Soldier Collector and historical figures, and return to editing with Model Truck, Car and Motorcycle. His modelling go back to early Airfix and Revell kits, including a 72nd Curtiss Helldiver that met fate under a flood of tube glue, and a Christmas build of Revell's 132nd J2M Raiden, helped by his dad and granddad. These days he's mostly a 148th aircraft man, with a habit of cutting up a perfectly good kit to make other versions. His tastes range from South African Air Force, Royal Australian and Royal New Zealand Air Force subjects, to Cold War Royal Air Force and United States Navy, smaller air forces, French markings, fleet air arm schemes, with regular appearances from Hawker Typhoons, Tempest, Furies and the Gloucester Meteor. When he's not butchering kits, Jon can be found travelling or walking with his partner, often accidentally finding model shops, don't we all, reading military history, cooking, quoting with Nail and Eye or Spinal Tap, or swimming with enthusiasm if not elegance. Now based in Worcester, with an adult daughter and 3 decades of Oxford behind him, he brings an artistic eye, editorial skill, and a modeller's passion to everything he does. So Jon, what first drew you to scale modelling as a child? And do you remember the moment you first got hooked onto the hobby?
I think it was my granddad, my dad's dad and my dad. They were both quite avid railway modellers. And my granddad was an engineer for Rolls-Royce during the war, worked in the crew factory making Merlins. So he used to build a lot of his bits and bobs for his model railway stuff. For reasons I still don't know, they decided I would be more interested in aircraft. I'd sit through the Queen's speech in the early 70s. They decided that what was quite a good idea was to buy model aircraft kits for me and then go and help me build them. So the three of us would disappear off at whenever the Queen's speech or whatever was on, some awful variety show probably came on, and they started building them with me. And then my granddad looked after me, with my grandma looked after me while mum and dad were at work. So he used to build models with me. And the one that I do remember building is I managed to persuade, or they thought it was a good idea, to buy the Monogram B-17G when it came out, which back in the 70s would probably have been quite expensive.
Yes, very.
Have the little Shepherd Payne diorama book in of the crash-landed B-17 and everything. And we made that on my grandma's kitchen table. Or rather, my granddad did, with me being very enthusiastic, but not amazingly helpful. Going through pots of, I think, glowy dark green paint to what was probably meant to be olive drab. Do you remember Monogram used to have those things molded in colour? I remember because it was silver, but it had black propellers and guns. And I think that's probably what got me hooked on it. I think that was the one that really cemented it into my psyche. I hate to think how awful it probably looked, but my granddad was pretty decent. He made a train once with two little cotton reels with handles on that if you twiddled them, some smoke came out from the top of the funnel and went round on a loop behind it.
You can tell he's an engineer.
He was totally an engineer. He loved stuff like that. So, yeah, that's what got me going on it. My mum and dad were always very keen to encourage that kind of creative side of stuff. So it was just a slow descent into madness of modelling, really, after that. And here I am.
Well, speaking of where you are now, you've obviously gone from hobbyist to assistant editor at Scale Aircraft Modelling. How did that transition happen? And what was it like stepping into the editorial world?
It happened because I wanted to try and get into doing something related to modelling. I was lucky enough to be able to leave the job I'd done for 25 years and be self-sufficient money-wise for a while. And I thought, I'll give it a couple of years to try and get into modelling, and then found out that actually, how do you make a small fortune in football? Start with a large fortune. Modeling's a bit like that, writing for modelling magazines. You've got to do it for the love of it rather than the financial reward. But what happened was, during the lockdown, a friend of mine had become editor of Scale Models. And it was really hard to post kits out for review or to build, especially to anybody in Europe or the States. And he was looking for people to do articles. So I emailed him and said, I want to do this. Can I write something? And he said, yeah. I'd just done these decals a few years before for an aircraft you might have heard of, the Gloucester Meteor, something.
Vaguely.
And so I built the Airfix F8 with some of my decals on it. And that was the first article. And from there, through that 2020 period of lockdown, I could build stuff 24 hours a day. I just had a lot of stuff in the magazine. To the point where I was to send you this, can I have this? It's like a 3-4 week turnaround. He left and got replaced by the current editor, Gary, who said, I'm doing railway magazines as well. So I help him edit articles. And it's just grown from there. We had a guy called Jan who used to do the aircraft profiles, and he sadly died. I was already editing his text, so they said, do you want to write those? So I started doing that. It's been the major shift that everything is to a deadline. Anything you build is always going to be ready in 3 to 4 weeks or maybe 8 weeks, depending if you're doing it for 2 issues. You're always editing stuff, writing stuff. There's always an editorial deadline, then there's a print deadline, and you're proofing stuff. As soon as you finished one issue, you're on to the next, or you're even thinking about the one after. Here we are at the end of July, and we're currently putting together the September issue. The other thing that I've discovered is that having started working with modelling magazines, you never read them. I used to really enjoy reading modelling magazines because I've proofed them, I've already read them. I still enjoy proofing them and reading the articles, but that kind of almost childish joy of running into the Smiths or the newsagents and going, ooh, the magazine's out. It's just not there anymore because it's professional. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy them, but I remember always going into town and being really disappointed when the new issues of the magazines weren't out in Smiths, and head down and sloping back off home. And God, I was in my mid-40s still was doing that. So it just has made it all a bit more grown up, really. It's a shame in some ways.
You've crossed that boundary between work and leisure, haven't you? That's the thing.
And I know a lot of people say, be careful, never turn your hobby into a job because it will become neither. But I do genuinely really enjoy doing it. I think I'm quite lucky to be able to do it. I just hope that people like what I do. I like what I do, but I just hope that writing articles about it is of interest. And also that the stuff that we edit, in the hope that we turn a good article into an excellent article. We want modelers to enjoy the magazine and take some inspiration from it.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Do you have much choice in what you're building, or is it just what comes along?
I have a certain amount of say in that I get first refusal on stuff sometimes and can put in requests, especially if we know stuff's coming out. Sometimes there will be right, can anybody build this? And if nobody else puts their hand up, I'll go, yeah, fine.
I suppose it is nice every now and again to do something a little out of your normal field of comfort, something you're not overly, unless you are pretty much good at everything.
Yeah.
If you gave me a car, I wouldn't know where to start.
That was... I turned my lack of knowledge about truck kits into 2 or 3 articles when I was editing Model Truck World, because it was about how a non-truck modeler starts to model trucks. And it is a real learning curve. Let's say you're an aircraft modeler and you know lots of things about aircraft and aircraft terminology, but you suddenly get a set of plastic parts that build into an Iveco truck. And you're looking at these things and you're thinking, what is that? And all these guys are just looking at you going, of course, that's the 5th wheel. I was like, no, I didn't know. But fortunately, they're all really nice. They'll tell you all these things.
Yeah, they really are. They bore the backside off me when I bump into them.
They're just genuinely, I think it's like anybody that decides to build truck models. Because even by the esoteric standards of this hobby, truck modelers are quite esoteric. Having somebody that says, yeah, okay, I'll build one of those, it's good. It's nice when you go out of your comfort zone. I was given a few kind of weird what-if Luftwaffe things to build early on, which kind of not subjects I would ever really go for. And it's camouflage to get your head around and subject matter. And also because I'm primarily 1/48 scale, sometimes I do some 1/72 stuff and 1/32. And again, that's actually quite a nice change because the movement in scales is sometimes quite a challenge when you're used to the size of things. If you work in 1/48 scale, you know that a wheel on a plane is roughly this size or a propeller's roughly this diameter. And as soon as you change scales, everything becomes quite alien. You have to stop relying on your assumptions and start checking things more, which keeps you honest, I think. It's quite good.
Speaking of keeping honest, the point you made earlier about the building the Meteor, you said you put your decals onto it. Your decals. Is this a little sideline?
Yes. I have a company called Marmaduke Press, named after Marmaduke Patel, the South African RAF ace of World War II. And the decals were drawn by a friend of mine called Rowan Broadbent, who died a few years ago. They used to do Fion decals, which were World War I, 1/32 scale decals, very well regarded, really well researched, printed by Fantasy Print Shop. He was also a bit of a Meteor fan, and he decided when the Airfix brought their kits out, he said, we should do some decals. But he said, the best will in the world, my 1/32 scale World War I builders are not going to start going crazy over 1/48 scale Meteor decals. So I did a bit of research for those and suggested some schemes, paid for them to be printed and did the marketing. And they sold reasonably well over the years. We did enough research, I think, to make it okay. And then we discovered we got a few things wrong, but that always happens. So for this build, I can't remember what I did. It was 41 Squadron maybe, with the red and white stripes fin.
Yeah.
That was quite eye-opening because what happened is I discovered that I hadn't included enough of the Squadron Lorraine crosses, so I had to use 2 sheets. Anybody that buys that sheet now gets 2 sheets and an explanation. And because the aircraft picture we used to research that, we could only find one at the time, had the fin in shadow and you couldn't see the marking under the fin. Then another one appeared and it was there as clear as daylight, and we all raised our eyes and went like that. So yeah, but I said in the article, I think they were my decals. So it was a half-hearted ploy to sell some, but it didn't really work.
And if anyone listening to the episode wants one of those decals, have you still got any available?
Yes, they are. You can still find them. I think my Facebook Marmaduke Decals page is still going. Just drop me a line. They are still there. There are 3 sheets with the tantalizing meteor schemes, all of them designed to fit the Airfix rudder where appropriate.
They are silver.
No, there's a mixture of silver, and then there's the camouflage ones. We've got one that's all over dark green, which was flown by an Air Vice Marshal whose name escapes me. That has 2 options, one with a solid canopy, one with the blown canopy. And I think we put an Australian one in there, which, don't buy it for the Australian one because we got the name wrong, I'll be honest.
Never mind. Yeah. So, John, your early modelling memories include some iconic Airfix and Revell kits. Do you think those experiences helped shape the modeller you are today?
I think they made me realise that I really wanted to do it as a hobby and it wasn't just a passing fad. The discovery of things got me into it, as well as that monogram B17. Anyone that ever lived in Stoke-on-Trent, which for non-UK listeners is a city in the Midlands, there was a department store in there called Bratton Dykes that had a fantastic toy department, and they used to have a really good model section. My birthday treat was always being given a tenner for whatever I wanted. One year, Hella had re-released all their museum range of 1/72nd scale sort of French subjects. So they had the Bloch and the Maransonier and the Duatin, all these things. And they were all 99p each, these kits. And I came out with a big stack of kits, like the happiest person in Stoke-on-Trent. That, I think, is what really hooked me and cemented me and really got me into it. Revell were always in my childhood, quite a bit like Monogram. They were quite fancy, I think, Revell. I always remember getting the catalogues in the 70s and the 80s. And I always remember there was that Revell Douglas A20 that had that splodgy desert camouflage of the US Army Air Force, where they painted over the olive drab with
wavy things.
And I just thought that was the most fantastic thing ever. But you could never find that kit anywhere in a local hobby shop. It was just stuff from the States, never got imported in really until the 80s.
Monogram for me was one of those kits that you had to go to a proper model shop for as a kid, and it's probably with most blokes of my age. You'd nip down with 50p to your local newsagent and get a Matchbox kit.
Or a frog.
Yeah. And it was one where, because the accessibility of it pushed my memories to certain brands, Airfix was. So, funny enough, at my local bike shop down Langwivy Road in Salford, and he used to sell Airfix bits and bats. But for the American stuff, you had to go into Manchester for that. It was proper gear then. You were in a proper model shop.
There was a company in Stoke and in Stafford. They had 2 shops called Bagnalls that were a model shop. And they had Tamiya stuff. They had, when they bought all their 148 scale kits, all they came out in the early 80s. They had loads of their cars. They had air fees. They were proper hobby shops. They weren't very big, but in the days before the internet, that was the world. It was fantastic stuff.
It piled it high. You're known for cutting up perfectly good kits to create different versions. What drives that side of your modelling, and which conversion has been your favourite so far?
Yeah, what drives it? Gosh, masochism. I don't know. I'll tell you what started it was Scale Models did their Battle of Britain series, the 40th anniversary. And there were a couple of conversions in that I think was it all Ray Rimmel did all those, didn't he, I think? And one was the Airfix 1/72nd Defiant, the original tooling of it, which was just awful. I remember he had this article where he used a Hella Spitfire Merlin nose with a load of milliput on it. He reshaped that. He did scratch-built tailplanes and fin, and then he did it in in a day fighter color scheme rather than knife fighter one, model decal codes and all these things. And that was one of the things that made me realize you could chop up models and do things with them. It was about that time in the 80s that scale aircraft modeling had started appearing, and Alan Hall was still doing his kind of balsa and dope. He did a Meteor T7 carved out of a lump of balsa wood, the nose. And I was quite happy building stuff, just like anybody else. And then all of a sudden, like maybe 10, 15 years, I can't remember what I bought. There was a model shop in Crewe in North Cheshire called ABC Models, I think. And Hobby Boss had just bought out a Tornado, and I bought that and came home glee going, oh, look what I've got. And then it was on Brit Modeler and everyone went, oh God, it looks awful. And so I carved and reshaped it into this kind of, I think, slightly better looking GR4 as it turned out. And it just made me realize there was more you could do with kits. And from there, once you get over that weird thing about cutting up perfectly good plastic kits, it becomes addictive. You start thinking, if I can do that, what else can I do? I like esoteric and different versions of things. If there isn't a version available with 3D printing nowadays, it's a lot easier to make them available to modelers. But it's still a challenge cutting stuff up and coming out with something
slightly different. Yeah.
Slightly different. So there's a Romanian PZL with a different engine and winter skis, or a Grumman Martlet Mark 1, which has got a different nose, and all these kind of things that I've done. Probably the one I like the most is the early Marauder I did last year, which the ICM kit, that the poor old ICM, they sent this kit for review thinking it was just going to be built out of the box. And then the next thing they know, literally slicing it into sections, rebuilding the wings, doing all these things to get this.
Is this the one you turned into a Mark 1 or a very early one? Yeah, I saw this on
an
Facebook.
early model. Yeah, early model B. So the wings are short span, different flaps, different ailerons, short fin, short rudder, different rear gun, different dorsal gun positions. Oh, it goes on. And it's all plasticard and talc filler.
Because nothing you could actually buy for that. It's not a conversion you could buy.
No, Lone Star Models did a resin conversion years ago, and there was a really rare Italian vac form, which I've only ever seen on eBay once, about 15 years ago. The problem with the Marauder is that it's such a different kind of airframe from the later versions that ICM are pretty good at doing different boxings, but you'd almost have to do a completely new tooling. It's so different. And then you've got RAF ones and early American ones. So there's no D-Day stripes, no naked women nose art on these things. They're quite boring color schemes, well, a lot of people. So I can't imagine them doing it. These are the people that are bringing out a Hamden, so why not?
Brilliant.
My first reaction was, can we get one from ICM because I want to make a Hereford out of it? My editor just went, can you not just build it?
Just build it. Stop creating, just build them.
Yeah.
But that looks like a slightly harder project than it you first seems, because I think the nacelles are slightly different profile, because obviously it's a radial engine versus a Dagger inline.
So just as a follow-up to my question then, John, do you gain enjoyment from researching to redevelop that aircraft into some other variant?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I find it probably more interesting, especially when you think you've found a new angle on something people have thought was one way and it turns out it's not. Like the Marauder nose wheel, everyone thought that it had been lengthened on later versions. That's true on the late versions, but what they did in the meantime was they just used the same length of nose wheel leg, but they mounted it slightly lower in the nose wheel bay, so the angle of the nose was increased to try and improve its takeoff characteristics. That took quite a lot of research, and a guy on a radio control plane site who was trying to redraw the plans for Marauders, who went, oh, look at this. And the more you look at pictures of the nose wheel on mid-production Marauders, the more you suddenly go, oh yeah, he's right. And it doesn't really make a big difference. I just like to think that maybe the pool of knowledge is clarified a little bit because of that. And somebody somewhere will one day build a Marauder and go, oh, hang on a minute. Maybe I can use the nose. I can just stick it in the nose wheel bay a bit lower down.
Just like the real thing.
And it goes back to what I was saying about aircraft having these little characteristics. The angle of the nose, the way an aircraft sits on the ground is sometimes quite important. The early Marauders have a slight nose down look to them, whereas later ones are very nose up. And if you catch that characteristic, I think you create a more realistic model because it just looks more like the original, which I think in many ways is what we all want to picture.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
I would also argue not many people who are actually looking at it would know it was right or wrong.
Yeah, you get away with that.
But there's always one.
Normally,
Yeah,
well, if
that's
it's usually that's the wrong colour.
Yeah.
But that's, even on this little Heinkel at the moment I'm building, this 112, I found a picture of the engine exhausts. They have slight raised sides to them, which I hadn't really twigged. I've done it all now. And I was at that point where I'm going, I could use some plastic strip and just build those up and redo it. And I thought, no, is anybody really going to notice? I know, and it's a bit annoying, but the grand scheme of things,
yeah. If you look at a model show, and every model on that show table, the guy who's done it knows there's a bug. He's not going to sit there and tell everybody.
I mean,
actually, we don't. We sometimes.
Yeah, we do, and we're reminded about it all the time.
Yeah.
We are our own worst critics, I think, and that's a good thing because that's the way you improve, by chastising yourself for stuff and then going, I won't do that again, or I'll improve on it. And also because the stuff goes into magazines, I'll freely admit that I am quite paranoid about that. You know, dear sir, annoyed from Brighton type letter where, you know, have you seen the exhausts on this? Sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that. I want to get it right, really.
It's one of those things, John, where I read the mags and I look at the builds and I think, oh, okay, that's the way it must be done. You are an influencer, in effect, because it's in print. So it must be real.
I would hate to think that we would put something in the magazine that somebody then goes on to go, well, okay, if it's in the magazine, it must be right. And it's not, because there's that old kind of things, known unknowns and things we know about, things we don't know about. The Donald Rumsfeld thing. But you see it online a lot with all sorts of things nowadays, is that mistakes get perpetuated. And you see it with research as well, where something will go down the line from years and years ago. Is that the story about Shermans being known as Ronsons because they lit first time? There's loads of things that aren't true about that. That slogan didn't exist during the war. The whole thing was coined by a guy that wrote a book about Shermans, and he'd been in the engineering corps. He didn't like them. They had no worse a kind of rate of catching fire than any other tank. But that little myth perpetuates, and it's got a life of its own now, and it will appear. And because the internet is full of articles that are basically copied, all these things just keep going. If you can dispel one of them every now and then, you know, it just makes the knowledge a bit more accurate, I think. And that's can't be a bad thing, I think.
No, I think you're quite right, because otherwise you get a perpetual lie going round. And it suddenly becomes the truth, doesn't it? Because it says so on the internet.
And in the world of modelling, that's not a massive issue. But it's just nice to think that what I really sincerely hope is that when I write an article and I say something in it, that what I'm writing is as accurate as I can be. And if I don't know something, I hope that I go like, I think I have written this a few times. I'm not quite sure if this was right, but I did it. Or I invented it because it looked nice. I've done that with cockpits, where it's a bit of gizmology to fill the place up. And
I think that
not pretending it's what it's not is the main thing.
Sometimes with a lot of super detailed stuff, I think, is that real? Like, are them bits actually there, or is it just concocted? Because I know I look at the pictures sometimes and then I look at what's been done. I think that's not quite right. They don't match. Made it up as it's gone along. Wish I could do it as well.
It's quite difficult when you look at pictures, especially black and white photos of cockpits, to get a grip on the size and position of things, because the photography can throw position out just by the fact the lens will distort things. I freely admit to doing it. You do make stuff up, but as long as you tell people you made it up, I don't see the problem. Nobody thinks the landing gear covers on a Spitfire are 3 inches thick, but they are on a model. Nobody takes you to task for that.
Quite. Well, you were saying about information getting written and then becoming folklore or gospel. There's a reference book on the meteors written by a guy called Edward Shacklady back in the early 60s. And there's a couple of absolute howlers that he got information wrong on. But all the modern books on the meteor all actually say about this fact, which they've obviously got from the book, because they've actually said about it and they've actually expanded on it as well. And it's fantastic. I spoke to the designer of that section of the aircraft, also of the Sea Meteor, where they put a Hornet hook underneath to do some trials. He's got that information wrong in the book as well. People have not done their research, just taken a book that was previously printed, taken it as gospel, and it gets perpetuated all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, there's the de Havilland Hornet undercarriage is one that's appeared in drawings a few times and then has appeared in kit form. I think Frog got it very wrong, but they're probably simplifying it. But the way that it appears in drawings is vastly wrong compared to the actual reality. It's just things like that. They don't annoy me enough to be shouty about it, but I think it's another one where if you Google or use another search engine, want de Havilland Hornet drawings and plans, pretty much every set of drawings will show the undercarriage wrongly configured because they've all come from this first set of drawings. And that's the kind of thing that down the line just means that somebody comes to do a model of it. And obviously, because people tend to believe drawings, that's the other thing. When drawings are woefully wrong.
I remember getting really disappointed by, you remember Tony O'Toole, when I was keen on doing a 32nd scale hurricane in a Malta scheme. I was telling him about this scheme I've got in a newish book, and I was telling him all about this, and he said, totally wrong. That description is totally wrong. It didn't exist. It wasn't done like that. And I saw the book I've got as colour renditions, and I thought, oh, it really did. I thought that floated my boat. Totally wrong. Not right at all.
And if Tony O'Toole says it's not a scheme that ever existed on a hurricane, you're pretty sure it didn't exist as well.
The only thing he couldn't tell me, because I ask him every time I see him, is, have you decided what colour that underside blue is yet that they use for sky blue?
Sky blue.
Yeah, sky blue.
I've got
anything you want.
Tony is a lovely guy. You mentioned you're building some RAF subject, and you know your inbox is full of pictures.
He's your man for
before.
stuff. Yeah.
Very good, talented modeler. And he does everything with a brush or a spray can. Good stuff. Really good.
Now, just to finish off the perpetuation of wrong information, how many plastic kits have you seen of the Fallen Gnat? Because Folland only ever built the prototypes. They never built production Gnats other than the single-seat fighters. Every single Royal Air Force boxing of the Red Arrows kit, it should have been Hawker Siddeley. Matchbox is the only that ever produced it and boxed it correctly as saying it was the Hawker Siddeley Gnat. Everyone's called it the Folland Gnat.
Folland.
To all the recent Airfix releases, Folland. Completely and utterly wrong. Look at the construction plates on the aircraft. It's got it stamped on there. Hawker Siddeley.
Didn't know that at all.
It's just how things get perpetuated all the way through. And most modelers, the likes of Nev's Age, etc., they wouldn't know any different. But
no different.
Yeah, absolutely. It was not my period, though, to be fair.
Wrong scale.
Red crowbars on Spitfires was one that went on for ages.
Oh, God.
That's finally died. But
What do you mean? They're not red?
Did they have a crowbar?
No, the early ones did there. It was mounted below.
yeah, quite.
Not right.
Was it the 5 onwards had the crowbar?
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I think so. Was it something Edward discovered? There's the other thing, the undercarriage operating selector thing. That was Edward came out with that one, didn't they? About how a lot of Mark 1s didn't have the automatic selector, the hand pump.
Oh, it was pumped up, wasn't it?
Yeah. Which I remember going, no, surely this can't be right. And then it was like, okay.
They've actually got it as well. I
think I've seen that in a 1939 RAF training film.
You remember when that came out, didn't you?
I was there.
Yes.
Tell you what, them blackouts were bloody murder.
That's something which, whenever you see Spitfires with the landing gear down, it was some documentary I remember watching, and they were saying, so that the pilot knew the wheels were down.
Yes.
They were like these little pop-ups.
Pins.
Tabs on the wings.
Tabs on the wings.
Yeah.
And yet you never see it on kits. Apart from Qatari, obviously. On all the other kits, you never see
That's what
it.
you're paying for.
When you've got the kit modelled with the flaps down, there's a little flap on top of the wing which comes up for the actuator arm to go through. And most people miss that out completely. They go to the nth degree of actually putting in the ribs to actually
pins
build
up, don't they?
flaps, but they don't actually go the final little step to put those actuators in. It spoils it completely.
Attention to detail. That's
Absolutely.
what it is. Yeah.
But you see again,
Was it just the Spitfire that had those?
Yes.
Or was that like a common thing on a lot of RAF
I think
aircraft?
a lot of World War II aircraft had pins that came up to show the undercarriage was down. The Focke-Wulf 190 had pins that did that as well, didn't they? I suppose, how do you know? I guess you've got to find
You can't say.
Unless you're going to go for the sort of the Polikarpov I-16 way and have a kind of little
little window.
semi-clear window in the wheel well.
Just to look down while you're flying forwards.
Yeah. If you can see the ground, they're not up.
Yeah, if there's grass coming through it, you haven't put them down.
Yeah.
Okay, John, what is it about early Cold War aircraft and the smaller Air Force subjects that appeal to you most?
Early Cold War aircraft I really like because it was a massive period of transition. You have that tail end of the piston engine generation, early jet aircraft. You have the rapid development of jet aircraft over 15 years. I like the fact you have this kind of mix of end of one era, start of the next. And I also like the fact that the markings are still quite bright. At the end of the Second World War, everybody mopped their brows and went, okay, back to nice bright markings, that's all. But I quite like the fact as well that there were lots of types in the 50s that carried on being used into the 60s and even into the 70s, a bit like the Sky Radar I was talking about earlier. The early versions of them aren't quite as well represented, and that appeals to my quirky side. Early Skyhawk, early Hunters, early Lightnings, early Crusaders, all these ones, they're the ones that never really get a look in, because I guess when you're a model manufacturer, you go for the version that has the most marking options, and that usually is somewhere in the middle. So with Hunters, you get F6s and FJ9s. Phantoms, you don't really get many early Phantoms, but you get a lot of Js and Ns or F4Ds and F4Es.
You're about to set boulders off with about an F4K&M.
I'm not even getting involved with it because nobody will do it. I've wanted a 30-second F4K&M for a long time, and nobody will do it. There used to be a conversion kit to convert a J, but the last time I seen one of them, it went for £1,000 on eBay. And that was about 8-9 years ago, and then about 2 years later, I seen it at Telford, built in the competition area. Stunning.
Was that a 1/32 scale conversion? Yeah. And funnily enough, this just popped into my transom, so obviously it got stored away somewhere. And there was another Scale Models massive conversion back in the early 80s, which was Revell's F4K in 1/48 scale, which I can't remember who did it, but they basically accurized the fuselage to make it the right width for the Spey engines and the intakes. Do you remember the Clock and Brown ceremonial schemes? Blue and red roundels.
Aircraft grey.
I just remember seeing pictures of it in the magazine with lots of plastic card let into the intakes to bring them out to the right width and everything.
I remember that article. Yeah.
I think I remember that. That was all homemade though, wasn't it? That wasn't a conversion.
No, it was all just done from plastic card.
From scratch.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
The last kit of that in 48 scale was probably the Hasegawa one that Revell re-released. So
Yes.
Yeah.
there's an Airfix subject that will sell and sell and sell, I think.
In
Here
this
with the new
country.
Tool F3 Tornado as well. Especially the way Airfix's quality is now with the tooling. They ever could do with the new F3 Tornado and possibly a GR1 in 48th.
If they've been willing to retool the Jaguar into the new kit, which is excellent, from the old one, then there must be minds at Airfix thinking about that, because you would think there would be money to be made.
The old tooling was absolutely horrendous because there were two halves that came down together. One was recessed, one was raised. And it was just a nightmare.
And they redid the Buccaneer as well, didn't they? Because that was a nightmare.
They've not got many more to do now, have they? They've nearly done all the mainstream, haven't they? Buccaneer, Jaguar, Phantom.
You'd hope they'd go down the Phantom route for the fact that for Hornby, they've already done a 3D scan because they did a 48th F4K
Corgi.
and the Corgi range. So they've got the LiDAR scan for it. So hopefully they could use the same to make a decent 48th tool kit.
Let's just hope they put enough detail in it than the 72nd one, because there was a lot of detail missing off the fuselage.
I think quite a lot of American modelers who are fans of the F4 would be quite pleased to see an F4 K&M, because it carries a lot of affection even for non-RAF, even for non-British modelers. Yeah, and it is an American aircraft, and it's it's like the F4E and the F4E got used by a lot of countries, and so has a wealth of markings. And I know the F4 K&M only had UK ones, but I still think there's pretty good global sales in that model.
You look at the amount of markings for the Israelis that has actually come out.
For Kernes.
I was going to say, with the amount of markings that came out for the Israelis, except you look at that, but I just think they're missing a trick, especially with this new Turkish company that's announced the F4B, and the pre-sales for that for the 48th is €340?
That was 30-second, 340 quid for a 30-second F4B.
Wow. And that's a Turkish company.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
But that's probably about
Old-
the going rate for a kind of modern 1/32 scale sort of limited run kit, isn't it? Who are the people? Is it Jet Mads, the people that have done the Vigan?
Yes.
That's about the €300 mark, isn't it? And that's sold pretty well, I think. So,
But the Turkish F4 is supposed to be injection molded rather than limited run, I believe.
yeah, it's true. It's very true. Although, when was that? That was announced a while back, though, wasn't it? We're not
Not that long ago.
last year.
No, this year. In fact, I think it was the second episode in that we announced it
Yes.
on the stash inflation. So what we on now? Episode
7.
7.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 3 months ago it was announced. But there was apparently about 14 sprues to just the cockpit.
Forget it. It's not my kit then.
No, you couldn't even build the cockpit in 60 parts or less.
After the lead loads out.
I'd probably have to build that as an F4A with the lower canopy and short radome.
Backdate it.
Anyway, next question. As assistant editor of scale aircraft modelling, you're lucky enough to get to see lots of builds and articles. How has that influenced or inspired you on your own choice of modelling subjects?
It hasn't necessarily influenced me because I'm fairly sure of the stuff I want to build. What it does do is it inspires me to try a lot of different techniques that I haven't necessarily seen before.
What are you like for weathering it? Are you a heavy weatherer? You just go out with the flow, see how you feel about it?
I like lived in, but not destitute.
Not grotty.
Yeah. And actually, it's really weird actually, because photography always makes your models look less weathered than you've actually built them. That's what I find. So
You always make mine look crap.
I always think I've put more weathering on my kits than it looks like in the magazine or on the screen. I always think I've got it about right, and sometimes I think, oh, it's a bit much. Then I look at the pictures and I think, I can hardly see that. So I don't know whether it's just a quirk of the print process that exaggerates things. One of the things I'd never done before that I picked up from articles was by one of our guys called John Bryan. He does this thing where he'll fill a lot of panel lines with kind of black rubberized CA, and then he scribes into that. He often shuts the canopies and rescribes the canopy lines and things. And I'd never really done that. I'd never really rescribed into CA. I'd always used it as filler and things, but then maybe scribed by the side of it. But actually rescribing into it, as long as you've got the right scribing tool, is really nice and you get a smooth line out of it. It's made me a lot less reluctant to do things like that. We have a Turkish modeler in the magazine, Yücel Kemal, I think. He does a lot of what I would call painterly weathering effects with his cockpits, where he'll dab on lots of little brush dots of diffuse colour, sponge things to get these weathering effects. And again, it's always really inspiring to see how different modelers tackle the same set of problems, because everyone comes to things from slightly different angles. Depending on where they perceive their skill sets to be or what they're trying to do, you get 3 modelers to build the same subject and you get 3 vastly different results. So it's quite nice to be in the very luxurious position to pick and choose from that, really. So it's good. Every month you get your own, this is the beauty of magazines, but when you're editing it and going through all the photos, because there are vastly more photos than ever appear in the articles, it is like having your own little model show every month to look at and just go, oh, okay, that's how you've done it. We had a guy last month who just masked around some tyres and then he used a dark grey to make some tread. And I thought, what a really simple idea that is, to create tread, especially in something like, say, 1/72 scale or on smaller wheels. Instead of trying to rescribe some
Conference.
Tread. Yeah. It was brilliant. It looked really good. And I thought, wow, I'm going to use that one.
So he just painted on a effect as opposed to trying and cut in.
It's like a shadow line where the groove would be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a dark grey and then pretty much a black, and just, painted it black and then sprayed the dark grey.
Oh,
and it just looks really, I mean, you consider 1/72 scale. I don't think what the model was. Can't think what it was. You look at the pictures of it, how you would view a model that size, and you wouldn't know. If you went up to it really close with a little torch, or you were about 2 inches away, you'd probably start to work it out. But from any realistic viewing distance, that was a great little trick.
Sounds like a brilliant optical illusion then. Yeah.
Another one I picked up, which I'm never quite sure if it works or not, is that you airbrush from 3 different angles using 3 different tones of the same color. So you spray something interior green, but then from below you airbrush a darker shade so that it hits the shadow areas.
Shadow. Yeah.
And then from above you do a lighter shade so it picks up the highlight.
Similar to what the tankers do, isn't it? People that do the armour with the modulation and all that kind of stuff.
And that was from a guy that does a lot of tank modelling. It's difficult to do in a cockpit because it's hard to get to the angles sometimes. But sometimes you get it right, especially with bulkheads and headrests. And you get this really nice little bit of shading on it. I think what's great is when you see it being done in an article by somebody else, you appreciate that it's actually doable. And the only thing that can go wrong is you just take the paint off and try it again. But it doesn't destroy your model, you just repaint it.
No, it's not the end of the world.
So that's quite inspiring, actually, is people tackling things in a different way. And it's not necessarily the way you might tackle it yourself, but just the idea that somebody's tackled things makes you realise that problems are not insurmountable.
And sometimes they're so simple that the answer is, I think of that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Marvellous.
And it's like those tricks that everybody thinks that everybody knows, so they never tell any about it.
When you're on your own, sat in your bedroom, I think, oh my God, look how good that looks. And, not at all.
Using blusher brushes.
Well,
I'm not saying where I got them from.
Moving on swiftly, borders.
You've worked across several publications, Sam, Model Truck World, Toy Soldier Collector, and more. How do you juggle these different editorial hats, and what have you learned from each?
Okay, well, to clarify, I do the design and layout for Toy Soldier Collector, so I don't do the editorial for that. Model Truck I was editor on, and I've just been asked if I'll be editor on the successor to Model Truck, which is Model Truck Car and Motorcycle. But I'm also going to do the design on that, which is quite nice because you've got a free hand. The way that you juggle the deadlines and things on those is the print. Sam is obviously monthly, so that has a 4-week cycle. Toy Soldier Collector is bi-monthly, so has its own cycle, and Model Truck is quarterly. So there are points in the year where they all clash. Fortunately, what I can normally do is if I know that, say, I've got an issue of Toy Soldier Collector coming up, I probably won't do a build for scale aircraft modelling. I'll do the editing. So I'm lucky that I can rob Peter to pay Paul. What have I learned from each of them is quite interesting. What I've learned is different modelling genres have very different sets of techniques and skills that even though some of them cross all the genres, are applied in very different ways. So the truck stuff, for instance, I was really amazed that a lot of truck modelers in the UK anyway use a lot of spray cans. Not many of them use airbrushes nowadays. A lot of European truck modelers will use airbrushes, but a lot of them still spray cans. A lot of them will use spray cans because they can get the automotive paint colours they want for particular trucks. And they also want quite high gloss. They're not as bothered, for instance, about, I say this with no disrespect to them because it's not as much of an issue because there aren't as many decals, for instance. So decals will go on and then there'll be a lot of gloss varnish used. And it's just a different way of doing it. But they are massive conversion efforts. They cross everything. And they'll start with a chassis and build a completely different truck from the one that was in the box because all the chassis are common to these trucks. And it's just a question of putting the right set of road wheels on and the right combinations. So I've learned actually all modelling is really interesting. And just even if you don't enjoy the subject, what you can take away from it is lots of different skills. But that actually, the more you look at a subject, I will freely admit, when they said, will you edit Model Truck? I was like, yes. Does it involve knowing about trucks? And they were like, yes. And I was like, but you learn quite quickly. And it's like anything, the more you learn, the more it becomes interesting. Certainly for me. So I do find trucks quite interesting now. I remember driving up the motorway in the passenger seat, I would like to state, staring at the weathering on these diesel tanks on trucks as I was going past them on the M6. Oh, look, that staining's like, oh, and you suddenly start looking at trucks with a modeller's eye and how do I do this and how do I replicate it? Toy Soldier is a bit different because it's a very different world. It's a collecting world. And And people are buying ready-made, absolutely beautifully painted figures in different scales, or even collecting those sort of polyethylene, literally toy soldiers, like the kind of thing you used to play with when you were a child. There's a massive market. In the States, it's a massive market as well. And
The old Green Army soldiers.
yeah.
I was going to say, a couple of years back, I got into that fascinating, I nearly said weird then, that fascinating collecting thing, because I was given these, God, what are they called now? Conti figures, yeah. And the sculpting on them was just absolutely fantastic. And when you start looking into it, it's like you said, John, there's a massive collecting scene behind it. You know,
But he's quite big, Paul.
1/32 scale, just slightly bigger than 1/32 scale.
Kind of 60 mil, 54 mil, they're all about kind of scale, yeah. And they pay big money for these figures as well. There's a lot of money in that style. Quite surprised, amazing.
Oh, yeah, it's almost as golden as Lego collecting that.
And it all sells out. It's quite eye-opening for me as an aircraft modeler. A lot of companies produce armored vehicles and aircraft basically as accessories for the figures, which is really weird, isn't it? If you have an aircraft or an AFB modeler, you think the figures are the things that go with. So they had the Hurricane Mark 1 company in Hong Kong. So it's designed to go with basically like 60 mil, 1/32 scale-ish. And it's a Hurricane Mark 1 in Bob Stanford Tuck's marking. So quite well known to the figure and art. It's $1,000 ready painted, and they sell out. They just go. And when you look at the detail on these kits, it's nothing like you would expect on an injection molded 1/32 scale. They're beautifully finished and built, but that's not the point of them. The point is to go with a diorama of the exquisitely sculpted figure. So it's a really weird reverse mindset to my modeling sense.
Yeah.
And they're just getting into 3D scanning now and light and 3D printing for toy soldier figures. And some of the stuff that's coming out for these kind of small scale figures is really fantastic stuff. And then you buy them beautifully painted. I can see the attraction of it. It is quite addictive. I've looked at some of them as the shows, and I'm like, I'd buy. And then you look at the price tag and you think, I'll only buy one of them. These guys will buy a lot.
Yeah.
What are you like as a figure painter? Is it one of the things you shy away from?
Figure painting, yeah. Next question.
I think most airplane modelers, don't they?
I think figure painting is as close to an art as modelling, because you see some of the figure painting that goes on. It's like and it is miniature. It's like
It's amazing.
It is just, I don't know how they do it. I follow quite a few people on Facebook that do it. And just the blending of these things and how they create different textures and tones. I know a couple of people have tried it, and I've tried it with like ejection seat fabric and belts to try and blend in tones to make it look a bit more kind of materially. And it's really hard. It's really difficult. My hat's off to these guys. It makes me admire a lot of different stuff, and it's made me realize I think I was quite narrow-minded before I started doing different magazines. I thought, oh, these guys stick to this stuff and these guys. But I know what I like. I know what I like, and it's aircraft. And actually what I've discovered is that I like a lot more stuff than I ever thought. And it's always a joy to see it, which is really...
Yeah, it doesn't mean to say you're going to have a go at it, or you could be able... No, yeah.
No, exactly. And I think that's the thing with a hobby. You've only got a certain amount of time. So I just want to concentrate on what I like. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy other stuff. I like a glass of white wine, but I like a bitter as well. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's just, I think it's just made me, maybe I just got older as well. It just made me appreciate that you shouldn't be narrow-minded about these things. Just enjoy the whole hobby and enjoy talking to people that like doing similar things, because it all feeds into the sort of enjoyment. And it's just great.
Yeah, I go to the Sword and Lance up north every year with a pal of mine, and it's predominantly figures and dioramas, but the figures, it is beyond stunning, the quality of the stuff that's there. I would hate to be a judge. I wouldn't like to be doing that job.
Yeah. We get asked to judge we do a model show in London twice a year, and we get asked to judge. And it's all sorts of stuff. And it's hard enough trying to judge stuff that you know about, but taking a view on things that you are literally sometimes just going on, which one do I think looks the nicest? Maybe that's the right way of doing it, really. Which one stands out the most?
Sci-fi was always my favourite thing because there's no right or wrong with that sci-fi.
Yeah, no, sci-fi is one of those things where I was interested in it a little bit when I was a teenager. It was the Battlestar Galactica sort of phase and Buck Rogers and all those things, but it's such its own little world now. Again, I think it's probably one of those areas where I think, especially with Japanese stuff, probably the future of scale modeling lies in a lot of those things, because that draws in a lot more younger models, especially the kind of the Japanese, the anime sort of stuff and all that kind of thing. And the Gundam, yeah. And the YouTube stuff of people doing Gundam stuff, marker pens. Gundam model has been using marker pens for years. And it was last year's really big discovery for a lot of aircraft modelers. So you should always, that's why I say, is always look at what other bits of the hobby are doing, because there's always stuff.
John, if you could build one type of aircraft for the rest of your life, like Typhoon, Tempest, Fury or Meteor, which one would it be and why?
Oh, that's such a difficult one.
This sounds like death row modelling, isn't it? You've only got one left.
Yeah, Rose, it was my death row modelling request. I had to convert a software to an Avro Volt, please. How long have you got? Just look at my case and see which things I've got the most of. And do you know what? It's probably Tempests, actually, which is weird because there weren't really many variants of Tempest. I suppose you could throw the prototypes in. But I just think they look really nice. I really like that big nose radiator. I could probably be happy building Tempests, or could I? I don't know. I think it's
having a range of the new air scale with the car door.
I was really pleased when he decided to. I was pleased when he decided to stick with the car door.
It was the wrong decision, but hey.
Yet
There was a funny comment on that by saying an American guy. He said, to be honest, the best bubble top Typhoon was actually the Tempest. So stick with the car door one, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah, I think that's not going to be a cheap model, is it? The Defiant he did sold out. Well, no, he got a lot of pre-orders on the Defiant. But that Typhoon's going to be, what, a couple £100, is it? I think. That's got my money written all over it. And Tempests are nice because they fill in that immediate post-war gap where they go from World War II markings that are all very similar. Then everybody goes a bit footloose and fancy-free straight after the end of hostilities. And then there's this really interesting sort of transition period of RAF markings where from the day fighter scheme into the kind of overall airframe silver. Then you have some of them that end up in these sort of Far East schemes. And you have this kind of weird set of markings where you've got the sort of Type D roundel.
When did they go out of service? 50s? Were they even that long?
Yeah, I think the target tugs were last to retire, I think, in the early 50s. When you got the target tugs with that kind of bright schemes. That was, again, another model that was one of the first ones that I think I ever really got seriously into trying to make it better, was the first issue of the Edward 148 scale Tempest that was short fuselaged and the fin fillet was too thick and the wings were a bit thick, and that was another one that was got.
Was that an actual Edward kit though, or was that not the Hasegawa? Did they not rebox the Did somebody rebox the Hasegawa? Ah, of course it was. Yeah. I always get them mixed up.
No, that was the Typhoon, and then the Temp.
that was the Ranger boxing.
That was good, but then you get that Hasegawa's Typhoon. There's another kit that really needs a 148 scale new tool, because that's got problems, and one of them, which I now challenge you not to see, which is if you go and look at a made up Hasegawa Typhoon kit and look at the top line of the engine cowling, then look at a picture of a Typhoon and look at the top line of the engine cowling, and when you see the problem with it, you'll never not see it. Yeah.
Oh, I already knew about it. That's why I was looking for a 48 resin nose to be able to.
There was a replacement Tempest tail that was thinner fillet and longer. Yeah.
And a nose as well for the 32nd one for the special hobby, because half the rivets were missing off the top end. Yeah, it was the full nose and the intake.
Yeah, because
it was too round at the top, but the tooling, for some reason, wouldn't give you beautiful rivets down the side, but when it came round on the top, all the rivets disappeared. You could see where they actually were, but they weren't able to do it because it was too rounded on the Tempest. But yeah, that's why Barracuda produced a new nose that you could just chop off and lob on, and it was cracking fit.
Because Barracuda redid the spinners as well, didn't they? Because the original new tool, Edward Tempest, when it came out, had the wrong shape propeller apertures in the spinner, which are like oblique slots on the real thing, but they'd done it as a sort of just as a D-shaped hole. And again, it's the kind of thing that it just throws the look of it when you see it. So again, it's all those little details. But yeah, I'll stick on Tempest. Final answer.
Correct.
For a prize.
Yeah. So, John, obviously with all your editorial work, do you still get enough time at the bench for like personal modelling? And how would you balance the modelling for fun with writing about it professionally?
Probably don't get as much time for actual personal modelling as I used to, but managed to ensure that a lot of the magazine modelling I do is pretty much the next best thing to personal modelling, which I'm quite lucky to be able to do. I'm in a really lucky position that I can do that. Hopefully the subjects I pick are interesting. I think that's why I get to do it. I think the thing is, most of the stuff that I've got that's half built is my own projects that I've started in between magazine work, and then a new kit or something's come along and you just got to delve it. I've got an F4U4 Corsair up on the shelf, which is the Hobby Boss one that I've been trying to, surprise, accurize for a while, which I've been re-riveting. And that has been going for probably 2 years, and it gets taken out of the box maybe every 3 months and about 4 lines of rivets put on it. And that's why the early Skyhawk I'm really pleased about, because that is a personal project. But I pitched it to the editor and said, what about this? And he went, oh yeah, that sounds good. Quite nice that Gary, the editor, he likes quite esoteric subjects as well. So like the Lysander I just built was quite esoteric, really. Did a Volti Vengeance as a target took a couple of years ago. And again, anything like that, again, because it's that immediate post-war period for me, or it's that kind of slightly small Air Force in the sense, Southeast Asia RAF, so a sort of a small part of the RAF. I think, putting it bluntly, if I built Mustangs and Spitfires and 109s, I probably wouldn't have as many articles in the magazine, but because my tastes are a little bit more oblique and unusual, I think that makes for more interesting articles. So I really am quite lucky that I can do that. But in my own modelling, I'm modelling, but I'm not editing. I'm modelling Monday to Friday, quite often 6:30 till about 3, 4 in the afternoon. So you can get quite a lot of stuff done if you put your mind to it. But it is very much, even my own personal modelling is very much a job in that sense, because that's the times when I do it. But when I was at art college, some people would go into the studio and work odd hours of the night and weird times like that. And I'd always turn up at 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock go home. So I've always been very much, I need a time slot to do it, I guess. It's just the way I work. So, yeah. But if I could do more personal modelling, I would love to do it, because I think what's happening slowly but surely is my stash has taken over the loft. Because what I'm not doing is I've not stopped buying models. That's the real problem. I'm never going to, never going to build these.
It's insulation. It's just insulation.
It's very expensive.
So I'm assuming you do your own photography and stuff like that as you're building. What's your setup? What kind of stuff are you using?
Yeah, I've got a Nikon 570, something like that, on a tripod. I've got a big light box which I bought online, which is about, I'm looking at it. So it's probably about 3 foot by 3 foot by, so roughly 90 centimeters wide, about 90 centimeters deep. It's got its own lighting built into it. Everything on a tripod with a little Wi-Fi remote for the camera. So everything is done on.
What lens are you using?
Oh, it's whatever the one that came with the camera, to be honest.
Are you a real chancer then?
Yeah. I mean, I bought a new lens for this camera, but it's the same one as came with the other. There were 2 models of the same camera, and one came with a sort of more extendy lens. I'm not technically.
Yeah, like a 28-125 or 135 or something like that.
Yeah, and the other one broke. I dropped the camera and lens, and it started jamming. So I bought a new lens for it. It was not appreciably any better. It was just the same lens from a different version of the camera. But everything gets shot at, I don't know what, f/25, 29 even, long exposures. It's all against a white background. or I use a blue background. And then, fortunate, by virtue of what I used to do and what I still do, I do a lot of Photoshop work on things. Not to cheat, but there's a lot of light levels.
There's a lot of tweaks you can do, isn't there?
And I've got a set of Photoshop kind of parameters that I apply to pictures that will knock a lot of the shadow areas back. So, because one of the things you have to be careful with when stuff goes into print is it can quite easily have too dark images without realizing it.
I'm assuming you're shooting RAW then.
Yeah, I shoot in RAW and then I bring it into my Mac and everything goes there into basically high quality JPEG for the designers. You can work in RAW or you can work in native Photoshop. If you're using Adobe, using InDesign and things, you can drop everything in as native Photoshop file. That allows you to keep a lot of layering. But if I'm supplying them to another designer, I'll send them as flattened JPEGs, really.
Let them sort it out.
It's one of the advantages of, and I do that as part of the editing work as well. So we get given an article with pictures. So as well as selecting the pictures that will go with the article, I'll also put all the pictures into Photoshop and we'll probably sharpen them a little bit, maybe crop them slightly, because quite often there's a lot of white background or a bit of background. Or quite often I'll get rid of backgrounds because the light levels aren't perfect. Sometimes we get a lot of passed on images from people that haven't set the white balance correctly. And I think one of the advantages I have over a designer that doesn't have any knowledge of the actual aircraft is that I've got a reasonably good idea what a color scheme is. So, for instance, like an RAF sky underside, for instance, you might look at that. Yeah, sky. You've got a reasonably good idea of where that's meant to be, and normally, like with a code, so you might think, I know the code's medium, see, great. So at least I know the color balance on that is going to be vaguely right if the codes are the right. And it does work. We've had some pictures come in with articles that you think these are going to need a bit of work to make the most out of them. And it's quite nice when they come into print and you think, I've got that one right. I know ones that I've not got overlong. But yeah, that's the photography thing. And it takes a long time when you're writing articles and you're doing photography. They are in fashion simply because as a designer, it's quite easy to put text around them. It's also easier. There's a lot of AI stuff now with manipulation, things like cutting out images and removing backgrounds or adding to backgrounds. That does simplify your workload a lot. Something that once could take you 20 minutes to put a bit of background in, you can do in about 2 minutes now. But you still got to know when to do it and when not to. Similarly, like with Toy Soldier, for instance, a lot of manufacturers like all their figures to be roughly the same size as they are in reality. So sometimes the layout, you've got to alter the photography to try and add some background in. So it might just be a bit of sky or some trees, but you're trying to get all the soldiers looking the right size. So it helps if you know these things. Whereas a designer might look at it and think, just a pure designer might, actually that figure would look nice, it was a bit bigger or it was a bit smaller. But that's exactly what the manufacturers don't want sometimes. You've just got to balance these things out. But the photography thing has been quite successful. I've got a setup that works. It's about 3 feet away from where I'm sitting. So I can just go from my workbench, transfer stuff over. The camera's on the tripod set up, turn it on, 3 or 4 pictures, bring it back, carry on working. And then at the end of the day, I'll just transfer them in and select.
Do you spray in there as well? Have you got a spray booth in there or do you spray elsewhere?
The other side of me from the light box by the window is a spray booth with an extraction tube that goes outside, which I put through the window. Yeah, I'm quite lucky. My partner, Caroline, we have the front room as the workroom. It can theoretically be turned back into a spare bedroom. Designed the workbench so it could be. Because I spray pretty much exclusively with lacquer the drying time, I've got the extraction unit on the spray booth, and I'm also always properly masked up when I spray. Once I've cleaned up the paint, it all goes outside into a metal bin that gets thrown away every 2 weeks, because I've made the mistake of leaving thinners in here for a couple of hours without realising it, and it's awful. I would say that to anyone. Spend the money on a mask. It's one of the best things you'll do. You will absolutely ruin yourself.
You can't replace your lungs, can you?
No, not at all. And the thing is, I've been guilty of it on a few odd occasions where I thought, I literally just need to spray a little bit and I'll just 2 minutes 2 minutes of setup, spray and clean up sort of thing. I won't bother with the mask, or I've forgotten to put the hose outside. That's a couple of times. And all of a sudden you're thinking like, oh, why does the room like some sort of chemical warfare? Yeah. The benefit of lacquers is that you can build models quickly with paints.
What are you using, MRP?
MRP and Mr. Colour and the Tamiya range. Switch between them. The MRP stuff I'm getting more and more of because it took me a while to get a hang of spraying the MRP stuff because it's slightly different from the Mr. Colour and Tamiya stuff. It's beautiful, but I think it's a little bit less forgiving. So you just need to be a bit more on your ball with it. But when you get a hang of it, it's really nice.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. I think some of the colours are a little bit off here and there, but generally, as to use, it's great.
It's got some, and the thing is, they make some colours in that range which I think are quite hard to get in other ranges. There's a really nice light slate grey, which is if you do immediate post-war kind of desert schemes, RF Spitfires and Tempests, that's a colour you need to get your hands on. And theirs is quite, yeah.
Matt, have you seen the SMS
I've got a couple
stuff?
of bottles of the SMS. I've tried thinning the SMS stuff with Tamiya lacquer thinners and also Mr. Leveling thinners. And it just about thins. The MLP stuff doesn't thin as well with that. I know it's ready to spray.
Why would you want to thin it?
Well, just a couple of, I find a couple of the colours just a little bit thick sometimes.
I found out I've got a few that I've had for literally 2 or 3 years and they have gone down when you...
They settle really badly, I think, don't they?
Some of these, that was full to the top when I got it, but I don't even think I've ever used that. Sukhoi Cockpit Pale Blue.
Anyway, Nevs, if you try unmuting your microphone, take 2.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. I was gonna say we could have just left Mark and John to it. It could have just been a 2-man band there. So I'm just gonna, because you've touched on my first question, I'll go more for my second. John, if you were put in charge of designing the perfect kit, can be any subject that you want, what would it be? Why would it be different to anything else that's out there?
Oh, I suppose do you mean in terms of subject or just type of it? Or could it be anything?
Subject, well, let's try and think of an example. Like, I don't know, there might be a particular variant of a Heinkel 111 that's not on the market.
Okay. I think, do you know, I think I've got a nagging suspicion that my wishes might be fulfilled on this one. This is not of any kind of prior inside knowledge. But what I really think I would like to see, and to use that terrible happy phrase, I'd buy at least a dozen, is a really good 148 scale Curtiss Hawk H75 P36. There's a massive series of variations on that aircraft, all of them fairly achievable with a kind of set of common parts. I know that Clearprop have got the fixed undercarriage ones, which to me suggests they might do some of the more well-known versions. Armour have done the 172nd ones. Again, that's promises. I just think that would be a really nice range of kits to release, and it would have so many nations use that aircraft. It's a bit like the P40, a success. There's so many different schemes for it. I don't know what I'd do differently other than what I would like to see a lot of manufacturers. I'd really like to see them including things like transparency masks as standard in kits. I think it's the one area of modelling that all modelers really just don't like doing. I don't think it's cheating to use cookie cut masks to mask transparencies. I think it's just a very wise thing. I know Airfix included them in that new 124 Spitfire, which again, they're Edward masks, I think. And I know quite a lot of the Czech and Lithuanian guys do it now. And ICM do paper templates, which is quite a nice idea. If you had a stereo in your car, it'd be quite nice to have masks in it. So probably that's one thing I'd put in, I think. I did once have this really weird idea, which I thought wouldn't it be great if you had a range of kits that were basically like a pick and mix one. So it would work with things like Spitfires and 109s, where you could say, okay, I'll have that. I'll have a C wing, and I'll have a twin stage Merlin fuselage, and and that'll make a Mark 9. All right. And I thought that'd be great. It would be a little sprue, and you could have one a sprue A and one a sprue B and a sprue D. And I thought that would work quite nicely for people that wanted lots of different versions, but perhaps had lots of spare parts. And I always thought that was a really good idea, but clearly, as no one's done it, probably wasn't. My idea was more that you would go to buy it from, say, the website, You would just go, okay, package.
Build-A-Bear, but for kit.
Build-A-Bear bit. Yeah, and I thought there was quite a lot you do with F-16s, you could do with F-4s. There's quite a lot of anything that was, you can do with Meteors, really. You have a common middle fuselage and then different ends and tails. And I just thought, but I suppose build your variant. I suppose is that manufacturers have become a lot cleverer as to how they tool kits. So, to try and answer your question, though, James, more, probably what I would do, or what I wouldn't do, actually, if it was me as a modeler and I could do this, what I wouldn't do is, say I was releasing the P-36. What I wouldn't do is release the first boxing with decals for the least well-known and boring versions. I would just do one box with 8 markings options for that version and say, that's the P-36A, not P-36A Pearl Harbor Defender or P-36A Brazilian Air Force. I'd just say, buy that one, build your model. Because I don't like the marketing policy of releasing the sort of least popular version because and I know why it's done, because it drives sales. Of course you do it. But as a modeler, I just want them to release the version everybody wants. So that's what I do. Yeah, because I think there are enough serious modelers that will always buy the model.
How many times have we all bought a particular model, a bit disappointed that it's not really the decals that you wanted or the marking, and then the one you really want comes out 2 months later? Oh, here we go again. There's another 30 quid.
Exactly. And I think as a modeler, I would do. I'm sure if I was actually running my own model, that view would change instantly. That's just the real world, isn't it? That's why it happens. I suppose the other thing I would do is if there was a 2-seat version of the aircraft, I'd always make sure that if the tooling would allow it, I'd ensure that the tooling was done in such a way that a 2-seat version could be done. And I would release it. Airfix
At the same time?
Even at the same time or quickly afterwards. Airfix's Hunter, for instance, there's an aircraft that screams for them to do the 2-seat Hunter, yet nothing's appeared. And I know Aerocraft have done a really nice conversion for it, but a lot of people don't want conversions. Maybe what will happen with 3D printing is actually that will become a lot easier. I mean, it'd be quite nice maybe if somebody like Airfix or Rebel or maybe Edward, Armour do it with some of the details now, don't they? Where you could buy the print file and print your own better detailed extras. But imagine if you could buy a single seat Hunter for say 50 quid. For an extra 15, you could buy the print file and print the 2-seat nose conversion for it. And you knew it would all fit because it had been tooled by the same people. I mean, that would be quite a nice do, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah.
John models, first release.
John, I've got a quick question for you. All your models that you build for the mags,
yes.
Do you keep them?
Yes. I've got, I think, most of them. And one box that had about 6 or 7 models in, I'd taken to Telford a few years ago, and it was in the loft and it got dropped. I could hear all the models sloshing around in the loft. And I had to take a view on whether I repaired them or not. And I went, they're all built for review. The reviews have all been done. The articles have all been done. And they went in the bin. But the rest I've all got. Actually, probably most of the models I've got on display at the moment are ones that have been built for the magazine. Nowhere near as good as the ones that I built for the magazine because my modelling has improved so much from just doing constant modelling. I don't think I'd put them on display anyway, to be honest. At the time, the last model you build, I think, is always the one that you think is the best. And it doesn't really matter whether you're doing an article or for yourself. But over the years, you look at things and you look back on it and think, oh, I remember building that. It was fantastic. And you look at it now and you think, no, not really. So they're all up in the loft. But yeah, I do keep them. I know a few people that write for magazines that will chuck stuff away on a fairly regular basis. I can see where they're coming from because especially if you're doing stuff that you just asked to build, you've got no kind of particular emotional attachment to it, then why not? It probably seems a bit cold-hearted, but there's only a limited amount of space. And I will have to cull some of these in the case that I'm just over from where I sit. I genuinely find it quite a painful process, to be honest. Yeah, I've put quite a lot of my heart and soul into these things, even if it's just to write for an article, and it seems cruel.
I was thinking you could always write in readers, if you want to join our draw, just put your name and address on a postcard with 15 words or less.
I did once at Telford. I had some stuff on a table, and at the end of the day, I didn't really have any means of taking them home because I'd bought loads of new models, and I had to leave early anyway because of where I was going. And I said to one of the other people on the table, I said, I can't take my models with me. And they said, what do you want to do with them? I said, I don't know, just give them to somebody. And they looked at me like, have you been drinking? And I was like, no, just give them to somebody. And I always hope they did. But the problem with giving models to people is that they always arrive, if you try and post them to people, they're going to arrive damaged. So it's a tricky one. Yeah. I've got, how many have I got there? There's probably about 1, 2, 3, 7 or 8 later. So there's what? 60 models in this case? And I'm constantly trying to see if I can fit more and more models on one. It's one of those IKEA glass case things, got 2 of those with extra layers put in. And I'm constantly seeing if I can shoehorn models into spaces. So they will have to go, but it pains me to do it. I'm not saying that just to seem emotional, but it really does pain me to throw them away, I have to say.
There could well be an article there, John.
I think it'll be a campaign to crowdfund for an underground bunker to store all these completed models in.
When I just finished university and I was still living in a sort of student flat, and I got back into modelling after a sort of 3-year student hiatus, I built a Revell 1/32 scale Focke-Wulf D 190D, and it got to the point where it wasn't ever going to get finished. In a slightly beer-fueled incident one night, I decided that the best way to get rid of it wasn't to throw it away, was to take it up on the flat roof and do the sort of Twilight of the Gods by burning it in a kind of Valkyrie-esque funeral pyre, which was quite amusing, apart from the fact that it was plastic, so it just melted, and all my flatmates thought I'd got a bit off the handle. Do you guys keep all yours? Do you cull them every now and then? Or?
Log them.
Yeah. Do you find, are people willing to pay for the kind of increased package?
I perfected the art of posting them and getting them away with little to no damage, and I've sent stuff all over the world, and 32nd scale stuff
You
as well.
flog them?
Absolutely. So if you want any tips on how to post, or just drop me a line. A lot of it depends on your advert, obviously, and your photographs. You've got to turn them on. Obviously, you're a well-known modeller, so what you would do is you would maybe put a picture of your model or the model,
sign it,
and to center page open, and take a picture of it. You can. I know a few modelers that do it, don't use their own name, but yeah, you can. It's doable. I've sent stuff to Italy, America, Germany, all over, nothing, and it's perfectly lands. You just, as long as you let them know at the end how you've packed it, how to unpack it.
You don't get. What about them being opened by kind of over enthusiastic customs people?
I always let them know in the thing, whatever you do, make sure there's 2 of you, because of the way I pack them and the way they're all suspended in. And then what I'll do is, say it's a winged wings kit, I'll get a big Tupperware thing, the thing you shove under your bed, that sort of thing. I'll then suspend it on elastic bands, so as it's free floating. And then you use the other beanbag filler, the little micro balls that are polystyrene. You fill it all with them. Obviously, you seal your cockpit so nothing can get in. But you do it in a way so as when you push your lid down, it's slightly compressing. Okay. So that model is going nowhere. It doesn't matter. And just tape it up, seal it up, off it goes. Be aware, when you open it, it's going to be full of these little balls that are going to go everywhere. How many times have you got something from somewhere and it's full of them peanuts and flipping heck? So, yeah, it's one ME109 where, do you know the little weights under the ailerons? The little
mass balance weights.
One of them had come up, and that was it. And that was to Italy.
Watch this space.
Okay.
And you get a few quid.
One last question I was going to ask as well. So, obviously, if you were to advise someone who's interested in pursuing editing in magazines for modelling, do you have any tips that you'd provide?
Yeah, I would say give it a try. If you want to get articles published, just the editor's address, always on the website, front of the magazine. What I would say is build things that you like to build, not what you think the editor would be interested in, because you're invariably going to be more interested in something you enjoy than something you think people will enjoy. Don't worry too much about the writing, because our job when we edit stuff is to make the writing nice, to make it legible, to especially, and as I would especially say this to people that are listening to the podcast, English is not their first language. Don't worry too much about perfect English, because we will rewrite it to make sense. I think that's what puts a lot of people off. I could write a really rubbish article in French and give it to a French magazine, but they'd rewrite it because it would sound awful. So don't worry about that. And don't worry about grammar and spelling and all those things, because that's the editor's job, to make a nicely worded article out of what you've done. Just make sure there are plenty of pictures. Try and take them on as clean a background as possible, and try and make them the best quality you can. But have a go, because we're always on the lookout for contributors. And the thing is that contributors, you send an article, reviewers, the world of editing is, there's not many magazines, there's not many editors, but there's always other stuff to do. We're always looking for people to review things or to do book reviews and stuff like that. And that's the way I got into it, was just by writing articles. But you've got to be, it's like anything, there's a lot of luck involved. I think if COVID hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't be doing it. I'd probably just still be making models, thinking it was quite an enjoyable hobby. But you've got to take your chance as well. But yeah, pictures, and then go from there and just have a go. I had a guy the other day on the Facebook page for Scale Aircraft. He said, I won't buy this issue because it doesn't look like there's much 1/72nd scale stuff in it. And I listed all the stuff that was in there that was 1/72nd scale. But if your scale, if you don't think the scale you like is well represented, whichever sector of the hobby you like, write some articles. The worst that can happen is that you've built a model of something you enjoy, you've written a bit about it and take some photos. The worst that can happen is that it won't get published in that issue, but it'll probably get published down the line, because we're always looking for people. It doesn't really matter actually what the finished articles, the journey of building it and getting there is the story that matters. And that's what we want people to do, is to have a go, is to be inspired to try things. I think the internet is guilty of a couple of things, but one of the things it's guilty of is promoting really beautiful looking models as being the be all and end all of the hobby. That's great. Everybody likes fantastic looking, lovely models, and everybody wants to aspire to building them. But the reality is that most people just build models because they enjoy doing it. Actually, the enjoyment is from the building and the painting and the finishing. There's always room for improvement for every modeler, but that's not the end. It's not the reason you do it. You don't do it for the glory. You do it for the enjoyment of the hobby. Articles where that comes through are really good articles, because that's what I would say. So it's not hard to get into. And also, don't be afraid to just try lots of different magazines. If one magazine goes, sorry, we've just done a hanger article, we don't really need a hanger, try another magazine. Some of them have writing styles they like you to write. But again, they'll polish up your stuff. The words are secondary, because that's the editor's job. We'll take your story we'll take your tale and turn it into a story. I think that's the way to describe it. Try. Yeah. Really good. I have to say, it's really good. You get your model in a modeling magazine and you see it. It's fantastic. It's like, it's worth a try. And the thing is, with scale aircraft modeling, we have modelers now, because they've got a sort of a churn of models that they're producing. We know that we can rely on them to have stuff that we can put in the magazine, but we're always looking for more people, because it's not an infinite number of models people build. We got people that a couple of years ago would almost have a build in every other issue, and we're hardly featuring them now because they've either decided they want to do more stuff online, or they're building for somebody else, or they're just not interested in doing builds for the magazine anymore. Yeah, and you get paid for it, even if it's in kits, but you actually will get paid for your article as well. So it's just so worth doing. It's a great way to expand your hobby, I think. I really do mean that. Give it a try. It's like everything in life. You got to try it. But it's not difficult to get into.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. I think that's a good place to draw a line and say, Jon, thank you very much for your time. It's been absolutely fascinating, and give us an insight into what working with magazines can actually produce, and the variance across the range that Guideline actually does produce lock, stock and barrel. But with that, I think, Benchmates, will bring this to an end for episode 7, where we've proven once again that grown adults can spend hours arguing about the correct shade of cockpit green and whether sprue cutters are actually better than nail clippers. We'll be back in episode 8 with a guest that we've been working on for a couple of months prior to launching the first podcast. this will be his first ever in-depth audio interview. So who is it? You'll just have to hit the subscribe button on our socials to find out in about a week or so's time. But if you're one of our Patreon subscribers, i.e. Ken Hansen or Dan Nuffel, you'll be finding out first. So a massive thank you to our brilliant guests, Mark Reeves and John, and of course to the crew. So from Wongy.
Thanks everyone for listening, and remember, 60 parts or less.
Mark.
Bye, y'all. See ya.
Boulders.
See you next time, folks.
John.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure's been ours. Thank you very much.
Cheers, John.
Until the next time, keep the glue off your fingers, the paint out of your tea, and remember, it's not hoarding if it's still in the stash. Goodbye.